Hello and welcome to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Happy 4th of July to our listeners here in the United States and Americans overseas. I'm Josh Roller, recording in Charlotte, USA, and joining me as always is the one and only Rob Peeters in Indianapolis. I have to say right now, this was one heck of an enjoyable race weekend. SRX was at Lucas Oil Raceway, and yes, we still call it Indianapolis Raceway Park here on this podcast. We probably will refer to it as IRP a few times. Rob was there and covering the race for the IndyCar and even got to see two drivers have a conversation post-race. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it and his first-hand account. This is pretty cool for this podcast. On Sunday, great battles took place at the Red Bull Ring where Max Verstappen continued his summer dominance. More battles at Mid-Ohio saw Josef Newgarden break through the captain for his first victory in open wheel in 2021, and also coming on the 50th anniversary of his first IndyCar win. So that was very cool. And then NASCAR celebrated Independence Day at a historic American road course, Road America. You gotta say it like that. You gotta say it like Road America. I mean, it just comes naturally. I'm sorry, Road America. All right, I'm done with that. And NASCAR's road course king, the new road course king, Chase Elliott, joined Tim Flock as the only Cup Series winners at the 4-mile circuit. All of this and more. So let's go ahead and get started. Rob, take it away with Rob's Racing Report.
That's right, everybody. It's time for Rob's Racing Report. Well, I'm going to give you all of the news that you probably already know about, but that's okay because we're going to talk about it too. We like having discussions on the show. We try and keep it up to date, but it's a little bit more like watching Last Week Tonight, but for racing. Except I'm not nearly as funny as John Oliver. Anyway, so starting off with Formula One here, Mercedes has made a driver decision on the future and will make another one within the next several weeks. So Lewis Hamilton, you hear about that? How about this? The guy we didn't really expect to re-sign this soon has re-signed already. Lewis Hamilton has signed a 2-year extension and will be with Mercedes in Formula One through 2023. So, a 9th championship is possible. Barring he doesn't, assuming he doesn't win this year. Yeah. He's still got 2 more chances. So it could get to a 9th championship. It's not impossible. We'll see. So the team will make their decision to pair whether or not to pair Hamilton with Valtteri Bottas or George Russell over the summer. Again, the summer break is coming up here with Formula One. Usually that gets around going here within the next month or so. So probably around August is when probably around September is probably when we're going to at least know who's going to be at Mercedes next year. And hey, George Russell, man, the dude got into Q3 over the weekend. And we're going to talk about that later, but he's if he could get a Williams into Q3, Bottas should have a fire lit under his pants right about now.
If he should have had one lit under his pants a long time ago, but
yes. But as soon as George Russell got into Q3, if it wasn't flaming hot by then, it better be. Next piece of news here. Audi and Porsche joined an F1 engine manufacturers meeting to discuss the future regulations of power units that are set to be introduced in 2025. Interesting to note there. Not sure what'll come from that, but it's an interesting note, a little nugget there that we can include.
I hope 4 more cars. I hope 4 more cars come out of it. That's what I'm hoping.
4 more cars, 2 more teams, okay. As long as they're competitive.
Yeah.
Or at the very least become competitive over the years.
Right.
Don't go like Haas where you're competitive out of the gate and then decide to stop being competitive, or be the opposite, which is Manor, which is be slow as a snail, and then decide to get great at the very end of your life, and then suddenly, poof, you're just gone, and make me sad.
Don't do that.
Make me sad. Don't make me sad. Moving on to IndyCar. Oh boy, my favorite. I love Tatiana Calderon. I pretty much have told you that I told everybody that on the show. I don't know why. I'm not simping, okay? I just think she's a good driver, and she hasn't had great opportunities to really show that. Formula 2, I don't think she was cut out for Formula 2, but I do think she's cut out for IndyCar, which is why this next piece of news makes me so happy. Formula 1 test driver with Alfa Romeo and FIA WEC sports car driver. See, because she's good in sports cars, too. She's good in sports cars, too. Shoot, you're right, Josh. I did. I'm sorry. I got so excited to talk about this news. Hold that thought. I'm going to hold myself back. because we have some breaking news to talk about. This broke literally like right before we were going to go live on this podcast.
It's very sad.
And this has to do with Formula One, so we have to go back. I have to go back. We can't move on to IndyCar yet. I'm sorry. I would edit this, but I don't feel like it. Australia, sorry, you guys don't get F1 or MotoGP races this year. Sorry. Formula One and MotoGP have just announced that the Australian Grand Prix this year will be canceled. I forgot because I had the motorsport.com article pulled up right here, and I was reading the paper. I wasn't reading the article. So I will read just straight from this story here by Andrew Van Leeuwen. I butchered that name. I apologize, sir. As expected, the Australian Grand Prix Corporation confirmed that neither event will go ahead in the final quarter of the year as planned. The F1 race had already been moved from March to mid-November, so that's not happening anymore. The move follows failed talks with health officials at state and federal government level over how to bring personnel, including riders and drivers, through Australia's strict closed border. The idea of a biosphere was floated, at least for the Albert Park F1 race, but failed. Basically, Australia, from my understanding, Australia has a much different situation with COVID. This is my very basic understanding, but they're having difficulties agreeing to how to do a vaccine rollout, which is delaying a lot of things. When you don't have a vaccine, even though you social distance and even though you wear masks and even though you've more or less eradicated it in the country, you still run that risk of reopening that whole can of worms by allowing for outside entries from other countries and tourists and foreigners and whatnot. So I understand it's unfortunate that this is the case. Obviously it's disappointing that, Australia is having these difficulties, and I'm sure it's all down to bureaucracy at this point, or politics. It always is. But either way, that sucks, and that's disappointing for F1 and MotoGP fans down under. Not fair to them at all, because, obviously they turn up every year. But maybe next year, and that'll be interesting to see what Formula One has to do, whether or not they decide to replace it, or if they just decide to heck with it and don't even try.
2 codas.
I mean, wasn't that already discussed?
Yeah, I think it went to Turkey, though. I wonder if they knew this was coming, though. I mean, this isn't something that this has come up in the last 24 hours. I think they knew this was coming. It was going to come to fruition, and that, okay, well, we got to replace 2 races now. Turkey, you want back in? Sure. And they handed off one. It should happen
anyway. As soon as Turkey got their stuff figured out or whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying I agree at all with the Turkish government, but I will admit that they have one of the best racetracks in all of Europe. Yep. I'll say that.
Yeah. We've made that clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, disappointing news out of Australia tonight, but that's what you deal with. You're still walking on eggshells with scheduling and trying to play in sports, and when you're still in a global pandemic. Really, we kind of still are. We still are. I mean, there's not much we can do about it. We still are in some parts of the world. We're still in a global pandemic. Yeah. I mean, here in the United States, obviously, with the vaccine rollout, has been much better. It's been much more effective. Which, thank goodness that this has happened. That we've been able to have such an effective vaccine rollout. And that we've been able to pretty much eradicate most of the cases of COVID. We are not seeing cases spike as much anymore, if at all. We have that luxury, but other countries don't have that luxury, and they have to play it a little bit more safe than we do right now. So, just overall disappointing. But I'm going to move on to that happy news now, because I don't want to talk too much about that sad news. I want to move on to this happy news about Tatiana Calderon getting a test with AJ Foyt Racing. So this is supposed to happen on Tuesday. So it's probably already happened by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah.
But she is going to test with AJ Foyt in an IndyCar. So I'm going to give my thoughts on this real quick, because this is why I'm excited for this, is because I've always said Tatiana Calderon is a good driver, but certain drivers aren't meant for certain places, and Tati falls under that category where she's not cut out for F1, I should say. And not every driver is going to be cut out for F1. There's going to be a lot of other drivers that are just going to excel in other forms of racing. And I think we've seen that be the case multiple times. I mean, just look at Grosjean in IndyCar right now. There was no doubt about his talent ever, but he didn't win in Formula One. He hadn't had a podium in several years. I mean, people started to doubt. Well, now he comes back over to IndyCar, and people are like, "Oh, that's right. Grosjean is still Grosjean. He's still the Grosjean he was." I mean, you can. It's not just Grosjean, but it's multiple other people. Marcus Ericsson. I mean, Marcus Ericsson. I'm going to talk about him later on in the show. But he got his first IndyCar win, and that was his first win since GP2. Imagine how many people were questioning the legitimacy of Marcus Ericsson. And now Ericsson is sitting fifth in the championship. Again, we'll talk about this later. He's sitting fifth in the IndyCar championship, and people, he's proving everybody who doubted him in F1 wrong. So I look at this and I think this is good. This could be really big for the series because number one, IndyCar has struggled to find a full-time female driver since Simona Di Silvestro left full-time, since Danica Patrick left full-time, since Sarah Fisher retired. I mean, it's really honestly been quite a while since IndyCar has had that full-time female driver. It would be great if Tatiana Calderon would be in that conversation again as potentially being a full-time IndyCar driver. I don't know what she'll do ovals. Great if she did. I think she should, given Grosjean's sudden, a preference to them, given Jimmy Johnson now saying, I mean, this was a nugget I don't think we're going to talk about here. I don't think we have talked about it, but Jimmy Johnson, I think, spoke with NBC Sports either last week or a couple weeks ago saying, yeah, I'm open to the 500 next year. I'm open to running ovals next year. I mean, from someone who's a decade ago said IndyCar shouldn't race on ovals to now saying, yeah, I think I can do it. I think I feel safe behind the wheel on an oval. I don't think Tatiana would have any different approach to that. And that's the thing. She's proven that she could do. There's only so much certain drivers can do with terrible equipment. But I think Tatiana has proven that she can do a lot with bad equipment. Now, F2, I'm going to ignore F2. I'm going to focus on F3 and Super Formula more so, because that's where really her equipment was really bad. And she did relatively well in those. In those. I mean, Super Formula she's still not the best, but that team is struggling. But she has been on an upswing. At least she was before the last couple of races, because she hasn't been able to race in Super Formula the last couple of years. I know I'm going on about this, but my main point is this is good. This should be good for the series. This is a good thing that I think we should all be happy for, because I think a lot of us who've watched F3, F2, F1 feeder series for a while, we kind of feel like Tatiana is pretty good, but hasn't really had the opportunities to show that yet. And she's getting the opportunities to show that now in WEC. And last year she was in ELMS. She was getting the opportunities to show that as well. So just a good feeling. I hope the test goes well for her, and I hope to hopefully see her in an IndyCar. If not later this year, hopefully, I hate to be this guy, but, you can't really be worse than Dalton Kellett right now. I really don't think you could be worse than Dalton Kellett. I hate to be that guy, but no matter who if AJ Foyt looks at this and says, yeah, I'm going to put Tatiana in the car instead of Dalton Kellett, I really don't think she'd do any worse. I think she'd have to wreck to do worse than he's doing right now. And I'm sorry if Dalton Kellett listens to the show. I apologize, dude, but he's just not very fast. I mean, when you're getting beat by Jimmy Johnson, who is also just not very fast, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know. You got to look yourself in the mirror at some point. I mean, I do it. I look myself in the mirror and tell myself, you would never make it as a race car driver. That's why you're sitting here talking about it. I'm going to move on. Roger Penske spoke with Racer this weekend at Mid-Ohio, and Penske said the schedule will likely be between 16 to 18 rounds next year. And now he is looking at more ovals, and even name-dropped Iowa in the Racer article. Now, he hinted that IndyCar is open also to a shared date with IMSA at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's road course, as rumors of an endurance race at IMSA race at IMS road course continue. Again, this would be rad. This would be awesome. I've wanted this since IMSA left the first time. The doubleheader with NASCAR is cool. I don't really want to bring IMSA into that because I want IMSA to have its own thing, be its own thing. Because that was the main reason why they left the first time, I believe, was because they weren't really the priority on the schedule at IMS. It was more about the Brickyard and the Xfinity race. You have something to say, Josh?
Yeah. I was just going to try and get in here. I think it'd be cool. I know it's cool to have the GP open the month of May, for, just for everyone sort of making that migration to Indianapolis for the 500. I don't like having two races on the road course there for IndyCar. I hope that second date goes to an oval next year, wherever that is. But I would like to see IMSA definitely get like a 24-hour race there. I think that'd be so cool. And for IndyCar to kind of like have them start like at noon on a Saturday, have IndyCar run their race, and then IMSA run their race starting at like 4 p.m. or something like that, and run Saturday to Sunday. I think that'd be really, really enjoyable, and I really hope wherever that slots on the schedule. I feel like that would probably be a July time frame. If NASCAR continues to be in August there. But either way, I that's what I'm hoping out of this.
Personally,
ovals is obviously good too.
Personally, I don't hate the idea of the Harvest Grand Prix. I was a little bit concerned about it, but last year it kind of turned me around. I was like, hey, it's kind of cool to have IndyCar racing down here in October. But now it's like in August. Schedule. Let's say hypothetically, if they did do this, I would actually prefer that to happen in like September or early October, because I feel like that would be a good time. It'd be a lot cooler, and I'm not saying you'd have to have like a 24-hour endurance race, but you could have a good 6-hour endurance race, an IMSA race or something around there, or like a 12-hour thing or something. Make it like
you won't accept anything under 12. I don't think though. I don't think.
Well, then 12 hours is fine. Make it like a like its own version of Petite Le Mans, but not. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 12 hours of Indianapolis. I think that would be neat.
Yeah.
We're just throwing ideas out.
They're spitballing, yeah.
We're spitballing. We're going to move on, actually, because I'm at 17 minutes. I want to talk about NASCAR here. So moving on to NASCAR news here. NASCAR, iRacing, and other stakeholders have decided to discontinue the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series on the grounds of waned interest. Yeah, you think? I haven't watched this thing since COVID. Being honest there, the original 10-race schedule only saw the first 5, all airing on FS1. So I think, given that, it kind of makes me think NBC wanted nothing to do with this.
Well, I think it's a combination of NBC getting out of it, and it's all going to be on NBCSN. And
NBCSN is not going to exist after a while. What's the point?
Yeah, I think it's a question about that.
I mean, look, like I said I haven't watched this thing since COVID. As soon as Darlington in May rolled around, I was like, I don't care about the eNASCAR anything. Like, I know I have a lot of friends who do. I have a lot of friends who are hardcore sim racers. I have a lot of great friends in the business. I even have friends who cover eNASCAR stuff, and I respect everything you do. I wish I could get into it like you guys do. I love sim racing, but the fact of the matter is, if I'm not in the sim race, it's really hard for me to care. And I don't have iRacing. I don't have a computer that can run iRacing right now. If I ever do get one, if I ever do have one, I'm sure I'll care a lot more about it. But right now, it's just really hard for me to take time out of my day and sit down and watch a sim race, even if it's literally a bunch of people I know.
Yeah,
it's still hard. I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel horrible saying that. I feel legitimately horrible saying that because I have a lot of very close friends. I forgot to wish my friend Josh Mertz a happy birthday. His birthday was on the 4th, and I feel bad about that. If you listen to this podcast, I hope, Josh, you know that I didn't forget about you. I just had a very busy Sunday, and I didn't get a chance to wish you happy birthday. Not you, Josh Roller. I have a lot of friends named Josh. But that's more to my point. It's just it's hard for me to watch a lot of sim racing stuff. It's not that I don't appreciate it. It's not that I don't appreciate what these guys do. It's not that I don't appreciate the talent and skill that it takes. It's just it's not really my cup of tea unless I'm involved in it. And like I said, if I got iRacing and I was a hell of a lot more involved in it, yeah, I would probably be a little bit more disappointed about this. But to tell you the truth, this doesn't really bother me as much as I think it might bother other people. I don't know, Josh, if you have anything to say about that.
I watched 3 races. I watched the Bristol race, the Dakota race, and the Chicago Street race. I didn't watch it live. I watched it. I recorded it and watched it later. But it's different. I actually find watching the Coca-Cola iRacing series a little more interesting. So I think it's just that, okay, great. I see James Davison and Rick Ware Racing winning in a simulation, getting some good due for their sponsors or however many thousand people are watching this. But I find watching the iRacing, the Coca-Cola iRacing series a little more interesting. And I wonder if that's kind of what they're seeing as well, even though the numbers aren't pulling, the same amount of people, and it's not getting aired live, but it's going to get
right on that. Audiences. I think you're right on that, because I think from what I've understood, this is just be like, if I can go see James Davison race on Sunday. If I want to see James Davison race on Sunday, I'm going to go see him race on Sunday. I can't see my friends like Dylan Connolly or Justin Malillo or Josh Mertz or someone or Victor Valley. I can't see them. I just name dropped all my friends. If I forgot someone, I'm sorry. I can't see them race on Sunday, but I could see them race on in iRacing and in that simulation stuff.
Yeah,
I could see them race there. I don't think Josh Mertz races anymore, but when he did, I could see him there. But I look at that and I think that's where that audience is. That audience cares about their friends, their audience, whereas the audience that cared about all those big name drivers has kind of been like, okay, well, we can see him on Sunday now. We don't care.
Yeah.
I think that's really where you're going. That's why you're probably right about Coca-Cola iRacing series going up, because people can see a lot more of those their friends, those drivers, whereas they're not racing against the big name guys on Sunday. I mean, I'm sure Landon Castle races with them, which is cool, but how many people care about Landon Castle? I mean, I do, but not enough people.
Yeah, Landon Castle, great driver.
He is a great driver. All right, moving on here. Parker Price Miller, a Kokomo, Indiana native. Hey, that's where you're from, Josh.
It is.
Well, I wonder why this is in here. Will make his Camping World Truck Series debut at Knoxville Raceway when he drives for Jordan Anderson Racing. Next piece here. Dale Earnhardt Jr. told Sirius XM NASCAR that the only roadblock to entering the Cup Series is a charter. Then on his podcast, he addressed the rumor that Colleague Racing paid $10 million per charter the team acquired, saying that $10 million is out of Junior's range. Now, this is important because this next piece of news was the big bomb of the day. Yes. Is that Trackhouse Racing has announced that the team has purchased the NASCAR operations of Chip Ganassi Racing. The acquisition will take place at the end of the season, and Trackhouse will field 2 cars in 2022 using the charters that they are acquiring from Chip Ganassi, and Daniel Suarez will be one of their drivers. Denny Hamlin told NBC Sports that Trackhouse Racing acquisitions of Chip Ganassi Racing NASCAR operations does not expand 2311's expansion plans for 2022. Now, this is interesting, and it's great that you put that topic up there of Junior noting that the cost of a charter was up to a close to about $10 million.
That's the rumor. That's the rumor that's floating around. So if that's the rumor, paid $20 million for 2 charters.
Right. So if that's the rumor right now, this leads me to believe. So from what I've heard, I've read a transcript so far from the recent Door Bumper Clear podcast. I don't listen to it personally, but I usually hear the highlights and read highlights that people post and stuff. One of the highlights that I read was that the rumored price that Justin Marks came to Chip Ganassi with was $35 million.
I can believe that.
So if we're taking that,
more money too than just the operations.
If we're looking at that right now and saying that Trackhouse bought 2 charters and a heaping load of employees and assets for $35 million, and Chip couldn't refuse that, I'm wondering how expensive NASCAR is right now.
Oh, well, it's the value of the charter. So remember this. Remember when BK Racing went
right. So you're talking about the value of the charter, and I'm going to let you continue. I want you to say your point, but I want to say this is that basically he didn't pay $35 million probably for the entirety of if the charters didn't exist, I do not think Marks would have had to pay $35 million to make it worth it. I think him paying $35 million was specifically due to the fact that Ganassi had 2 charters, and the prices of those charters were shooting up. The value of those charters were shooting up so much that Justin Marks basically said, all right, here's all the money I was going to spend on a charter. If I buy your team entirely, I get 2 of those things and basically be able to run in the Cup Series with 2 cars, not just 1, and I double my assets. It seems like this was a great business move by Justin Marks, but it makes me really wonder how much Ganassi was losing, or if not, if he was breaking even at all on his NASCAR program.
Well, very great point there. I think, the goal in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series is to break even. I don't know what the goal is in the Cup Series. Just simply to win a championship at all costs, probably. But if you remember when BK Racing went belly up, I think it was Front Row who bought that charter. It was for like $2 million and change. All right. And that was for a charter that really wasn't getting that much money, because the value of a charter is based off of your rolling 5-year, I think it's 5 years, your rolling 5-year owner's points position. Well, those 2 Spire owner's points positions weren't that much. All right. So if Kaulig bought those 2 charters for a total of, 20 million range, Ganassi's 2 charters are worth more than that because they finished higher in the owner's points. All right. Well, think about where Gibbs's charters are worth. So yeah, the charters. So we bashed the charters, but it wasn't coming to fruition with what they wanted to do until now. All right. So it took them 5 years to finally get going what they wanted. So now you're looking at it. I would think if the Gibbs charters, okay. The Gibbs charter's got to be worth, if those 2 Spire charters are worth $10 million apiece, the Gibbs charters have to be worth at least what? 15 apiece, 18 apiece, something like that. So you're looking at this. So you're looking at the Gibbs organization. Let's just make it an even 20. Let's just say they're worth double because they did finish higher. Let's say the 4 charters at Gibbs are worth $80 million. All right, $80 million together, and one's going to be worth more than the 4th one.
So basically, what you're saying here is, if you're going to buy the team outright, you're going to end up paying more for these 2 pieces of paper, or however many pieces of paper the charters are on, than you are for the entirety of the team, building. Labor, capital, all of that.
Oh yeah, I believe so. I would say, again, I'm not a money person. I have no idea. I don't want to offend Joe Gibbs Racing in any way. I'm just taking this at a guess because I don't know what all they have in there as far as assets go. But I mean, you're looking at their operation being worth, I have to say, at least $120 million between everything. So the 4 charters, all right, from their Cup organization, from their Cup side of the garage, is worth 2/3 of their operation. I think that is what the charter system was designed, because there's a really great point, and now I cannot remember who it was, and I'm really bad. I'm going to totally sort of take their word here and not give them credit, and I apologize to this person if they listen, but this gives the teams a way out, the owners a way out. Before, we just saw teams kind of fold up and leave. Now Chip Ganassi wasn't looking to get out, but he said, Marks came to me with an offer I couldn't not take a look at. I had to take a look at it. I had to address it. And that to me says, okay, well, if this one person walks up and says, I got $200 million, can I buy your team? Okay. Yeah, my team's worth $150 million. Go ahead. You want to end that bad because you think that that's where the market's at, is $200 million? I mean, that's
what I don't like, though, is because the whole thing about the charter system, and I know we need to move on, but the whole thing about the charter system that bothered me was just what you said, was that it gave owners basically a get-out-of-jail-free card if they ran their organization into the ground. Rob Kaufman ran his organization into the ground, and now what does he get out of it? He gets money and gets to retire nicely instead of having to be responsible for his own financial misdealings.
But did you think that, I can't remember his name now, and I feel like his last name was Divine, the BK Racing, Rob, yeah. Do you think he got his money back when of course he was in debt.
He was in financial debt. No, of course not, because
no one got the money. But Chip Ganassi Racing, he
had way more debts. He had way more debts than CGR and Rob Kaufman ever would. And that's the thing. Kaufman basically did this because MWR failed.
Right.
If MWR doesn't fail, Kaufman doesn't come up with this decision because he's upset and gypped because MWR is failing. He's more mad about the money he's losing than the fact that Waltrip is losing his livelihood. A bunch of people are losing their jobs. Drivers are losing their jobs. Engineers, crew chiefs, all these people are losing their jobs. Kaufman just wants to get some money out of it because he thinks he's entitled to it for some reason. No, buddy, you sunk the money in there. If you lost the money because of your own misdealings, that's on you. You got to own responsibility for this. So he comes up with this idea. Oh, how about this idea? Because in case I ever screw up again and run my team into the ground again, then this is how I'm going to get out of jail free because everybody's going to give me money for my charter. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, I and that's a fair thing, and I think you have a point, but also the market has to be there, and the market 18 months ago was not there. Now the market is there, and Chip Ganassi, I don't think he was looking to sell in February, but when Mark says, "Hey, I want to be in this bad, here's the number," I think that if you own a business. And you're not really looking to sell, but someone offers you a ridiculous amount of money for it, and you feel comfortable selling it and putting your employees in their hands, you're going to consider that offer. And I think that's what is finally coming to fruition with this new renewed interest in motorsports, and specifically NASCAR here, that these charters are finally doing what the franchise equivalent in other major sports are, that if you want to be an owner in the NFL, you have to pay whatever the market is for at least that team in combination of the interest in the sport. And that's going to be at least $900 million, my guess is. All right, just because of, that's the 900-pound gorilla in the sports world. All right, Rob, unless you have anything to add, I think we need to go ahead and move on to the feature. You're ready to move on. Let's move on here. Because, speaking of Chip Ganassi Racing, because Chip Ganassi is exiting the sport, we have decided to do favorite Chip Ganassi NASCAR paint scheme for this week's featured paint scheme. So, Rob, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone what paint scheme you selected?
Yeah, so this one is a really tough one because there's a lot that I had to pick from, and there was a lot that I really like. Personally, yeah. And so this one is going to be a little bit different because most people would think, oh, you would pick a car of yesterday, right? Of course you would. You would pick a car that ran between 2001 and 2007, right? Naturally, right? Anybody would, or at the very least, a nationwide car from that time period up until 2010, right? You would pick no. I am actually going with a very, very different one, and one that I've actually liked for a long time, and honestly preferred over every other paint scheme that was sponsored by this company. So I'm going to pick Dario Franchitti. Yeah, by the way, hey, you remember when Franchitti was in NASCAR? Because Franchitti he talked about it in the SRX race, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I felt like that was the first time he's mentioned it since he did it.
Yeah.
So Dario Franchitti ran this car at California in February in 2008, the same race that got postponed from one day to another. Casey Mears flipped in it, and it was all crazy or whatever.
Very crazy race.
And it was Sam Hornish that went underneath him. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said it was Dario, and I was like, no, it was another open wheel guy who didn't need to be in NASCAR at the time, who was wasting their prime in NASCAR. They could have. I swear, Hornish wasted his prime in NASCAR. He could have gone on and won more 500s. He could have won on more IndyCar championships, but he wasted his prime in NASCAR, and that's his prerogative. I argue that Danica did the same thing. Totally could have won more races in IndyCar. Totally could have, had more success there, wasted their career at NASCAR, whatever. It is what it is. At least Dario had the sense to come back. At least Juan Montoya had the sense to come back.
Yeah.
We couldn't get Tony Stewart back in one. We got him to do a couple of doubles, and again, he showed what he could do. Should have probably come back, but whatever. I digress. But so this was a one-off because Dario struggled to find sponsorship this season, and that wasn't really. That was like kind of the flavor of the month back in 2008. You had the recession, the housing crisis, and all that stuff. Once that hit, I remember once my dad lost his job and all the other NASCAR teams started merging, I was like, shoot, man, are we in the Great Depression again? I don't know. I was too young. I was 12. But my point is, this car, it was a Target sponsored car. So Dario had Target on the car, and Reed Sorensen ran the Target sponsored car primarily during this year. God, can you remember that? Reed Sorensen racing for Chip Ganassi? How did this happen? How did that happen? Seriously. That's right. He won that race at Nashville on the Busch Series, and everybody thought he was the next big thing. Anyway, so it was a complete inverse of Reed Sorensen's Target paint scheme. Sorensen ran an all-red scheme, whereas Franchitti had a all-white scheme. And the all-white with the red accent stripes along it, much like Sorensen had the red car with the white accent stripes. So you can see where we're going with this. But see, this is the thing. White Target cars just look better. And I have said this for a long time. I will continuously say this. White Target cars just look better. I preferred Target cars that were white. Even Reed Sorensen, I think, ran a white Target car in 2006 that I even considered. I loved that car, but I don't like Reed Sorensen, so I didn't want to pick that. But I picked Dario's. And I like this car. I really think this was one of the better looking car of tomorrow's, especially of that time period. I think there were some really good Car of Tomorrow paint schemes, but this one was one of the best that stood out, and it was just a one-off. I mean, Franchitti bounced around with multiple different sponsors almost every week, and this was the one that I feel like they should have just kept. This one was the best looking at the very least. But, again, Dario had not that great. He finished 32nd in that race, which was only his second career Cup race at the time, which was fun too. But that's my featured paint scheme for the week is Dario Franchitti's 2008 Target Dodge Charger, the number 40 as well is what I'm picking. Josh, how about yours?
Well, there's a lot of them I could have picked, but when you use the keywords Chip Ganassi Racing and NASCAR, the manufacturer Dodge comes to mind, specifically the Charger from 05. And this was such a hard decision. But I'm going with Sterling Marlin's 05 Coors Light Dodge. Because Coors Light, I just associate that with Chip Ganassi Racing too. So Chip Ganassi Racing, NASCAR. I mean, you think of early 2000s, you think of Dodge and Coors Light, that just boom pops into mind. And this car was basically just silver, and the only other design to this car were the mountains along the bottom of the car, on the sides and the rear quarter panel. This was a rough year though for Marlin. His best years were behind him. His lone top 5 was Texas in April, and he gathered only 4 more top 10s. Other than that, 3 of them actually came in the first 7 races. And, the season was going so poorly by late summer that Scott Pruitt replaced him at Watkins Glen, where he did finish 4th because of owner's points. If you weren't high enough in owner's points, you weren't guaranteed a spot in the next race, so it's the way it is like right now in the Xfinity Series. If you have qualifying and you're not in the top 40 in owner's points, you're not going to be in the next race when we have metric qualifying. Pruitt did drive the Coors Light Dodge that day at Watkins Glen, but I chose this car again. That 05 Charger is just the most beautiful Dodge that ever stepped foot, figuratively, on a NASCAR racetrack. I don't care whether it was Cup or Xfinity or Busch or Nationwide as it was then. It was just the most beautiful car there was.
I have a few problems with that, but I'm not going to state them here because I respect your opinion. As a Casey Kane fan and a Dodge fan, I have a few issues with that. First of all, I want to say that I like David Stremmy's 06 car a little bit more. I like the black on the side door of the car. I liked that, and I'm sorry. I liked that. This one is good too. But I respect your opinion. And you could continue. I just wanted to let you know that the Casey Kane Dodge fanboy in me remembers those beautiful green and black Mountain Dew Chargers, and I have and the Mopar Charger. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, the Dodge Summer Sales Drive, the little like the orange and red where it was kind of like metallic. Oh yeah, those that Mayfield and Kane. Sorry, I'm going on. Excuse me. Oh, the inverse pit cap that Kane drove it with the racing stripes at Indianapolis in 05. That comes to mind as a beautiful
today, folks.
sorry. I'm thinking of all the cars that I would put ahead of Marlin's 05 car.
I know.
I respect your opinion. I respect your opinion. Though.
I chose it because Marlin was an original Ganassi driver in 01. You know, I really, really, really wanted to pick Jason Leffler's 01 singular car.
Why didn't you? I almost did.
Because I just Marlin and Coors Light spoke more heavy to me, and you know that was a 5-year relationship. Singular.
I almost picked Marlin's. He ran a race with Target sponsorship in 01. I almost picked that one.
He did, and because I respect your opinion, and you're going to disagree with me because you've already stated that they look better. I like the red Target cars. Cars. So I mean, we didn't expect us to agree to disagree on this segment, did you? We usually are like,
we'll agree. I'm sure we'll agree. This is the fun part. Is we disagree so much on the featured paint scheme. Watch us just agree on the upshift and downshift all the way. We disagree hard on paint schemes, but we'll agree on the direction of motorsport. Yeah.
And usually it's the other way around. So, hey, because we just eclipsed the 41-minute mark here. That's my pick. Just more of this was more sentimental back to 01, but I like the 05 Dodge Charger. You're right. David Stremy's car does look good. There were a lot of good nationwide cars. They had a couple good Dodges in the COT. Primarily didn't choose that because COT was, oh my gosh, terrible. So, let's move on here. The first race we're going to talk about today. Rob, you were there. SRX. At Indianapolis Raceway Park, the Oval at Lucas Oil Raceway. Rob, tell us about your experience, and I hate to tell you to keep it short, but let's not discount.
Well, I don't want to let our, I want this to almost be like a big exclusive for our listeners.
Yeah, it is.
This is one of our, because we don't really usually like interview a bunch of people on here, so like we need to have like an exclusive moment. This can be like the exclusive. Rob describes SRX at Lucas Oil Raceway because I was the only person there from the Indy Star that I understood. I think that we sent somebody else. I didn't see him. I saw him once, and then I thought he was a photographer. No, he wasn't because they used my pictures in the paper. I don't know what he was doing there. But I didn't see anybody else in the press conference in the media center. There was only one older gentleman who was the only other person there, and then everybody else I think was down on pit road. So I spent some time down on pit road. This was probably. TV? Well, yes, I was on TV.
You were on TV.
You can, if you watch the very end of the broadcast, you can see me poke my head behind the board and get on behind Ernie Francis Jr. when he's being interviewed after the win. And then you can also see me capturing Castro Neves and Scott Speed having a confrontation, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But anyway, so it was a beautiful night. Absolutely beautiful experience. I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity than that night. I'm so thankful to Nat Newell for the opportunity to do that, cover that. But I think the most interesting thing I noted about it, and then Josh, we talked about this in the before the show, is SRX driver availability is not like most racing series. It's a little bit more difficult, and probably because these drivers are doing other things in their lives. They don't really have the time to sit down and do an SRX interview. I was fortunate that I was able to sit in on a Zoom press conference on Wednesday, but, I didn't really have a great opportunity to talk to a lot of drivers after the fact, after the race, before the race. Just really Wednesday was the only time I got a chance to talk to anybody. And the only people I could talk to were Bobby Labonte, Elio Castroneves, and Bobby Santos III, which is fine. It's a fine selection of drivers, differing opinions on different questions, which was great. But, I would have liked to have talked to Ernie Francis Jr. I would have liked to have talked to Tony Kanaan. I would have liked to talk to Willie T. Ribbs. I would have liked to have conversations with these people, but anyway. So like I said, it's just me in the media center, which, by the way, they don't turn any lights on up there. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but they don't turn any. There were very dim lights. They were like I think I have. If I had to guess, I think there was like 4 dim lights on in that media center, and if my work computer didn't have backlit keys, I would have been probably SOL writing that because I couldn't see anything but my my screen. I really couldn't. I couldn't see my keyboard very well. It was very dark in there. Once the TVs got turned off after the race, when I was writing the story, it was even more dark. It felt because I think the TVs were most of the light was in there.
You never thought you had to bring a portable lamp with you to write a story,
right.
But Rob, you are making the example of something to tell the next time. If anyone ever calls you, hey, you want to be a guest lecturer here? Hey, essential portable lamp.
Bring a source of light. Bring a source of light if you go cover a race at Lucas Oil Raceway anytime soon, or at IRP. But anyway, so it was great opportunity though. So I went down before the race, and I went down to the pit road before the race. Got to see a lot of the pre-race ceremonies. Paul Tracy actually got delivered. I don't know if you saw this or caught this, but Paul Tracy did his driver intros from the back of a police car in handcuffs.
Genius.
I mean, this dude, he is playing the heel perfectly. To use a wrestling term, he is playing the heel perfectly. Absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
He is literally the heel of SRX. Everybody hates him. Everybody has a feud with him going. Everybody wants to beat him. Everybody wants to crash him. I mean, it feels like I'm watching a wrestling show. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like he's the heel that everybody's going after. He doesn't have any championship belts. But that's I should say the 03 kart championship is not worth a whole lot. Call me when you have the 04 through 07 ones, which actually had Justin Wilson, AJ Homendinger, Sebastian Bourdais, drivers that were good and worthy of that title, not just against a fresh rookie Sebastian Bourdais and a bunch of European F1 rejects, because that was pretty much the rest of the kart field in 03. And I know Paul Tracy doesn't like to talk about it, but dude, did you see who Dale Coyne was fielding that year? Come on. My point is, back to the point. That was fun to see, though. It was fun to see Paul Tracy kind of just take that, and the crowd got into it. But speaking of the crowd, I wrote 2 stories. I wrote 3 stories in total, but I wrote 2 stories from the SRX experience. And the second one that I wrote was primarily about how big of a crowd there was. That was a huge crowd, and I had heard, and the reason why I wrote that story that's on IndyStar.com right now, you can read it. The reason why I wrote that story was because I actually had that one lone gentleman that was in the media center with me say point blank, he said this was the biggest crowd he'd seen at IRP since NASCAR left. And now SRX doesn't reveal like attendance numbers, and I haven't heard anything, so I didn't really know what to say. I just kind of took that dude's, and obviously visually you can tell it was probably the biggest crowd that they had since NASCAR left. Visually.
I will agree. I will agree with that. I'll second that.
And that's why I wrote the story, because visually that's what it was all about. And so I decided to go with that angle and basically talk about how, if NASCAR wanted to come back, they could to IRP. Not saying they will. I didn't want to say they will because I don't know if they will. I don't even know if it's on the table. I don't think it's on the table. I'm sure NASCAR has some problem with it. I'm sure IMS has some problem with it that's preventing it. I'm sure LOR needs to be upgraded in order for it to even be talked about. But even then, even if it gets talked about, who knows? Who knows if it's even going to happen? Who knows if Roger Penske is going to allow it? Who knows if Doug Bowles is going to allow it? I don't know.
It's not up to them. It's ultimately up to NASCAR, unless there's something in the contract with the track and the sanctioning body of NASCAR that says, not to interrupt you, Rob, but
no, you're fine.
That says NASCAR can only go to Indianapolis Motor Speedway or events hosted by Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Indianapolis. They have no control.
They have a region clause like Texas had for so long.
Yeah. But I also can't see that being the case in NASCAR. But I don't know. I think that would be a poor move. I think that'd be a poor move because I think you could have a really great racing lineup in the Indianapolis area when NASCAR comes to town. I mean, I would if I wasn't covering a race, I would love to go to a truck race at the IRP, go to some races on the road course at Indianapolis, and then go watch the Cup race on the oval. Would love to. And then see the BC 39 on the dirt track.
Yeah,
That'll be a great lineup of racing.
Well, we're not going to see a Brickyard on the oval ever again, probably. I think Penske has made this crystal clear that he's got ideas and he's going to do them regardless of whether or not people think like them. Penske's done a lot of good things for the track, don't get me wrong, but he's also done some things that have really, really grinded my gears, like killing the Freedom 100 and putting the Brickyard on the road course. Those two things primarily have grinded my gears more than anything the Speedway's ever done. Usually I look at the Speedway and I think, they can't really do that wrong. I was mad when the Nationwide Series, Xfinity Series, whatever, left IRP the first time, but I got over it because I didn't mind it. I thought the racing was pretty good. I'd been to the races. I liked the value that it offered. I liked the value that the ticket offered. You got to see practice and qualifying for the Cup race and then an Xfinity race for $25. I appreciated that value. That was nice. But, it loses the luster when it's all on the road course, because who cares about the road course? Nobody cares about winning. Unless you're I said it on this show before, and I'll say it multiple times, unless you're in an F1 car or a sports car, winning on the road course at IMS matters to absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter at all. It's nothing. It's worthless. It's a worthless victory. Yeah, you won at IMS, but who cares? So was amateur drivers in SVRA. So was Marco Andretti in an Indy Lights car. Who cares? Who cares? Honestly, tell me who cares? Nobody. So that's my thing. But back to SRX. It was a great race overall. I enjoyed every single lap of that thing. There was lots of slide jobs. I don't know if TV was showing it, but because I watched the broadcast after I got home from the race, and it looked like TV was showing a lot of the action, but it wasn't showing a lot. There was this one that I remember, Bobby Santos III. He's racing Tony Kanaan. Hard, tooth and nail, right? And they're going at it for like lap after lap after lap. Well, Santos III makes this tries to go in and slide job Tony Kanaan, and he goes in there and he drifts practically through turn one. He's practically drifting through turn one, and he gets Kanaan, but then he drifts just a little too high. And when he cleared Kanaan was able to do the over under on him, and Kanaan got back Bobby Santos. That was incredible. I don't know if TV caught that.
I feel like I'm remembering something, but I can't remember if it was that exact thing. A slide job now, but either way, that's a great move.
It was a beautiful slide job. I mean, Santos III. Man, if he had just been able to keep his foot in it, just get his foot back in the gas just a little bit quicker, I think he would have had the position. But Kanaan was able to get the nose back under him and take the momentum away and just get by him on the backstretch. But man, it was just so fun and refreshing to watch a race like that. Watch cars, comers and goers, see comers and goers like that. Ernie Francis was the ultimate comer the whole race. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Paul Tracy and Willie T. Ribbs dropped like rocks as soon as they started from the first row on their heat races. And by the way, you have a mention here of fan cautions. I call them caution clocks, but we should really just call them saving Willie T. Ribbs from going a lap down cautions, because that's really what they are. I noticed on multiple occasions that those cautions were thrown specifically when Willie T. Ribbs became at least a half a lap down. Like, as soon as he crossed the finish line and the leader would be on the backstretch, as soon as there got to be a delta threshold where the leader was too close to Willie T. Ribbs, they'd throw the caution flag. And it was like that every time. Like, you were trying to pick out a rhyme or reason. It wasn't like a number of laps. It didn't seem like a number of laps. It literally seemed like they were throwing a caution to save Willie T. Ribbs from going a lap down. Yeah. And I apologize, but this is the same guy who balked at the idea of doing simulator practice in favor of, I guess doing virtual sex is the best way I could say it. You shouldn't really expect much more. You shouldn't really expect much more. The guy could do a lot more to prepare, and he's not. I'm sorry. I mean, him and Bill Elliott are race fun for last position for like the first couple of laps until Elliott drives away from him.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. And then Bill Elliott has another problem. He did have another problem, by the way. He came in,
he did.
And I saw it because I was watching all the cars go by, and I see Willie T. Ribbs blow by Bill Elliott, and I said, that's the first pass Willie T. Ribbs has made all day. Something has to be wrong on Elliott's car.
Poor Willie T. Ribbs. That's a guy I was wishing he more than anything, we just have one good rowing here at Slinger or at Nashville Fairgrounds. Just
and you can't really look at him and say, there's I mean, he's not the oldest. He might be the oldest, but not by much. Guy out there.
He's not.
I think Bill Elliott might be older than him.
I'm pretty sure Bill Elliott's older than him. I'm pretty sure because Willie T. Rose was pretty young when he was running in Trans Am in the mid '80s.
Yeah, he was.
So I'm pretty sure
he was in his early 20s when he ran Indianapolis too.
Yeah, so he's Bill Elliott's by far the oldest guy in this field right now. By far.
I want to continue my story here because I want to try and get through this as fast as I can. So, and I'm also, as I'm talking, I'm going through the main points that we're talking here. Ernie Francis and Scott Speed ran side by side for 2 consecutive laps.
Great battle.
2 consecutive laps. I was losing my mind. I'm like I felt like I could because I'm the only one in the whole media center. Basically, because the other guy had stepped out. I don't know what he was doing. I think he went to the bathroom or whatever, but he wasn't in there. There was no PR person up there. I was basically the only one up there for at least a solid chunk of the feature. So that was fun. But anyway, so I'm sitting here just thinking, like, losing my mind. Not actually, but in my head, I'm losing my mind at just how incredible this racing is. And then you have the late race cautions here. So here's the thing. I'm going to start to tell the Elio and Scott Speed story. So, the accident when Tony Kanaan gets spun, I actually didn't know that Castroneves spun Scott Speed. Because again, so in here, we have a TV, but we don't have the TV audio. We have PA audio. So the track PA audio does, for whatever reason, does not mention the fact that Castroneves spun out Scott Speed.
Yeah.
I have no idea that this happened. Right? I have absolutely no idea that this happened. I don't even see the side of Speed's car until he comes in. I have pictures of it, though, until he comes into the pits after the race. I didn't even know that Elio had ripped a chunk off of it. I didn't even know that Elio's car was damaged until I saw him pull into pit road.
Yeah.
So this is my preference. This is important to know for later. So I have no idea of this. All I know is that Tony Kanaan spun, and now we're going to have basically a green-white checker. So I start to realize, I'm like, okay, so the only way I'm going to get an interview with anybody is probably if I go down to pit road right now. Because I don't think they're going to bring anybody up to the media center, because if it's just me and this other guy, it's not worth anybody's time. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to see what I can get. What kind of videos, what kind of interviews, if any, I can get. Just get content, whatever. I'm just going to try, or at the very least, get some experience so that I can write about my experience later, which I ended up doing. So I go down there and I watch the last restart from the pit road, which is cool. And then I start, everybody's coming into the pit road and I pull up my camera, right? I pull up my phone and I'm just going to start taking pictures of the cars because this is as close as I can get into the cars. And all of a sudden people start hopping the fence like it's no big deal. Like it's not a hot pit or anything. NVD, just go hopping across the fence. It's like random people. Because keep in mind, this is the other thing that really kind of confused me, is I was told I would get a media credential. I don't think they actually had any. All I got was a wristband that said I could go into the pit road. That was all I got. I signed a waiver and I got a wristband. I was like, I don't have any like hard card or anything, whatever. So there was no way for me to know who was there as family members, who was there as a fan, who was there as media, who was there as a photographer. I had no idea. No idea. So I'm just like, all right, screw it. Forget it. I'm just going to go down. If there's no way to differentiate me from anybody else, then I'm just going to go do my job and be way more confident than I normally am on a regular basis. Because I'm not, if you know me in person, I am the most shy human being on the planet. I am very, very shy. I'm usually outgoing to people I know, but to people I don't know, I'm very, very shy. Even people I grew up watching on TV, I'm still shy. Like I'm still like a little bit hesitant to go up and ask somebody for an interview. So anyway, I'm sitting here and I pull out my phone and I'm taking pictures of all the cars. I'm taking pictures of like Michael Waltrip's getting out of his car, Paul Tracy's getting out of his car, Tony Stewart's getting out of his car. So I'm mainly taking pictures of Tony Stewart because that was kind of a big deal. Nat, my editor, told me, you should try and focus on Kanaan, Castroneves, Stewart, people like that. So I'm like, I'm going to get a bunch of pictures of Tony, and if I could talk to him, great. Well, all of a sudden, and then I start recording, I switched from taking pictures to just recording video horizontally. And as I'm recording this, and I don't even notice that I totally forgot that I had this until like I went and looked back at these pictures like later that night. I totally forgot I even had this because I just got all caught up in the moment. Oh yeah, I know. You told me 1 hour. I know. Castroneves like walks right by in front of my shot, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't register with me for a while. And I started following him with my camera. And at that point, I started realizing, oh, he's mad. He's mad. He's mad at somebody. And keep in mind, I had no idea that him and Speed had tangled. I still didn't know. Like, I knew that they had gotten together earlier, but I didn't know that Elio spun him out under caution. I didn't know that. So I just see Elio walking by. And I just think, okay, he's mad. He's mad about something. I should just go follow him.
Yeah.
So I pull my phone back into camera mode. Keep in mind, I'm trying to keep recorded at 4K, 60 frames per second. Twitter butchered the quality, so it looks like a potato recorded it, and I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I wish I could upload a much better quality version of it on Twitter, but I can't. And so Elio walks by, and I just start recording, and my dumbass doesn't think to put it out of vertical mode. I'm recording in vertical mode for some reason. And I'm recording this, and I'm just like, this is incredible. You know, and I'm trying to get closer, because at this point, I'm still not sure if I could just cross the pit wall. Like, I know there's a bunch of people that are, but, you know, it's still kind of like an active racetrack to me. I don't really want to take that risk and get in trouble, so I'm just going to stay behind the pit wall for right now. And that's when this guy gets in front of me, and I have to start moving the camera around to try and hear what's going on, to see what's going on. But anyway, so I get that, and then it takes forever to upload. And then when it finally uploads, it starts going viral. And I realize later that TV didn't pick up like any of it. Like TV didn't pick up any audio. I had the audio.
Yeah.
So I'm the only one, to my knowledge at least, that has audio of this, or at least some audio of this fight, of this confrontation. Not really a fight, confrontation, I say.
It was a confrontation.
Conversation. So I'm the only one basically who's putting out audio of this, which is insane to me. Like, this has never happened before in my life. And I'm still waking up. I'm still looking at this today. I pull up TweetDeck, and I swear, oh God, yeah, David Land liked it. That's how I know I've made it, right? The guy that I do nothing but insult on a regular basis, not just in my own private life, liked my tweet. So I bet you, I doubt he's listening to this, but if he is, sorry, David Land, I got a bone to pick with you. We could talk about it later. But yeah, so a lot of people, Matt, I woke up on Sunday morning to find out Matt Yoakum quote tweeted it.
That's awesome.
I found that out. That was kind of cool. I'm trying to go through and trying to find more or less famous people who have at least liked it or retweeted it. Because I know I texted my editor. I texted Nat, and I was like, we need to get the Star Sports Twitter account to retweet this immediately, because this should go viral, and this is the only viral tweet I've ever had in my life. For to be completely honest with you, I gained only 3 followers out of it, which sucks. I really expected more. And I think as I'm going through this, I'm pretty sure Matt Yoakum was the most famous person to retweet that. At least I know a lot of other people who retweeted it who have large followings, but I think Matt Yoakum was the most well-known person. But yeah, it's always interesting. There's under the tweet, there's people getting fights over petty stuff. I love reading the quote tweets from from Brazilians. Here it is. This a Brazilian fan quote tweeted it with a giant, like, text-based middle finger towards Godspeed. I love that. That got me. I love the fan reaction to it. It's like it's not even that big of a deal. Like, it's really not something that warrants that kind of reaction. No, but I love it anyway. I love the passion of fans.
Racing fans, we're all a special breed.
Okay, Mark Janes liked it, but he follows me on Twitter, so I don't feel like that's as special as normal. I feel like he would have liked that no matter what, just because he follows me. Yeah, I think that's it. But anyway, yeah. So I had a great time at SRX. We had a great opportunity to cover it. I'm so happy to be able to talk about it, and that's really, yeah. You said down here, Bestwick said there would be fireworks. Yeah, well, guys all over Brownsburg were lighting up fireworks. So there were literally fireworks on track and in the air. And actually, what was really wild was in the press box where I was, I could actually see the cars go down the backstretch, and I could see off in the distance the fireworks going off. And you'd see people in the crowds like pointing at the fireworks, and I get so confused because anytime you're at a race and the crowd starts pointing somewhere, you think there's an accident, right? No, the crowd's pointing up at the fireworks up in the sky, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh man, did someone wreck and I miss it, or did someone like put another slide job on someone and I miss it? No, we're just pointing at fireworks, stuff that we could go see tomorrow. But this is actual SRX racing. Point at this stuff.
Yeah,
that's the last I'm going to say. Josh, if you have anything else you'd like to add about SRX, please do. Otherwise, we could go ahead and move on to the F1 race in Austria, which I was able to get up early for, and then fell asleep after the race and woke up to the Nathan's hot dog contest. I heard it was weird because it was funny, and I know I'm going to let you do this. Last thing I'm going to say, I laughed my butt off because I had a dream about Joey Chestnut, and that's when I woke up. That's why I woke up, because I fell asleep after the F1 race, and the Nathan's hot dog contest came on right after the F1 race, and I fell asleep, and in my dream, I was hearing the TV, and they kept talking about Joey Chestnut, so suddenly, subconsciously, he comes in my dream and starts eating hot dogs. Weird thing happening, right? Josh, what do you have to say about SRX, and then we'll move on to Austria?
I don't know. I need a 5-minute recess, Judge. I can't handle what I just heard from Rob. I'll save a little bit what I have to say for a later segment, but I enjoyed the race. Once again, SRX putting on great stuff. I hate that it's race 4 of 6. We're almost out of it. ARP, Lucas Oil Raceway, great race. I mean, they tried to throw it away for Ernie Francis there, but I love the speed battle. Honestly, I really wanted Ernie Francis to win that race. I won't lie to you, just because he is this road course guy, and he doesn't have the much oval experience. And Scott Speed has oval experience from his time in NASCAR. I was okay with either of them winning because, I mean, Scott Speed's a cool guy. Scott Speed's cool. I wouldn't mind that at all. But Ernie Francis Jr., he's showing, he's like, hey, I'm beating these guys who have somewhere in motorsports made their mark, who have made history, won championships, won races. So, great race. Again, just fantastic race. So, and I think it showed, too, that, hey, a one-groove racetrack can be a multi-groove, but a one-groove racetrack is not bad. I don't think IRP is a one-groove racetrack. I'm actually going to argue that. I actually think, and this is just me from driving it in simulators and from watching it on racetracks, but I actually do think there's a substantial 2 grooves that you can make work there. You can make the outside groove work, and you can make the inside groove work. It just depends on how your car is handling and how good of a driver you are. It can very well be easily a 2-groove racetrack, and I think we saw that on Saturday. It is possible. And, we saw it in the NASCAR races prior. It was always a 2-groove racetrack, so I don't know. You just listen, there's just the people out there. I'm just trying to turn their opinion, say it is a multi-groove racetrack. But yeah, I agree. I think there's always kind of been those 2 there. All right, so on to Formula 1 here, Rob. This was a race that, let's see, what did I do? For whatever reason, I couldn't fall asleep on Saturday very well, and I might have dozed off on and off for like a lap or 2 during the F1 race. But for the most part, I watched the whole thing. I won't lie. I watched most of the race. But the big takeaway on this one is let the drivers race. Holy cow. My goodness.
Many penalties. And it's not just this. I mean, this was like this in the F3 race too. Logan Sargent got his first podium of the year, and the first podium ever for Charouz taken away because of quote-unquote track limits violations.
And see, right, I mean, for track limits, I'm so
track
sick and
limits
tired.
Was stupid, and sorry, you're right. Track limits was stupid, but then the penalty on Lando Norris was equally stupid. And when you have Christian Horner, the team boss of the car that Lando pushed off saying that it's a BS penalty. It's a BS penalty.
It's a BS penalty. You got it. This is, I don't know what. It's like that F1 race director's office. This is, what do we want to pick on today? What are we going to be really
How
picky
can we
about
create
today?
the most boring race possible?
I don't understand that. I mean, it's like you are handicapping the drivers. I mean, these guys are going elbows out, all right? And they just were saying, no, you can't do that. You can't prove a guy. I didn't see one penalty that was it says, hey, yes, you drove a guy off. Here's a 5-second penalty. That was actually like they had position and you forced them off the track. I didn't see one that was anywhere close to that, in my opinion. Okay, others listening to this, Rob, you might have a different opinion, but I think every single penalty for running a guy off is mainly in turn 4. I think they were all BS penalties. They were all BS penalties all day long, and I didn't agree with that at all. The other thing that I loved was watching was, if you didn't enjoy that Alonso George Russell battle, I mean, that's a heartbreaker. Even Alonso said after the race, "I hated to do that. I feel sad that I had to take that point away because I think he knows how hard they're fighting. I don't know. I don't know if Alonso's ever been in a car as bad as this Williams is, or how low this Williams is.
Oh, he's the McLarens he were in were really bad. So I think Alonso probably gets it.
Oh, but they at least score points though. They didn't.
It's not like okay, here's the thing. It's not like they didn't have the pace to score points. It's not like Alonso himself didn't have the pace to score points. I don't know how many points Stoffel Van Dorn scored in 2017. I can't imagine it was very much. If it was if it was any more than 10, I'll be surprised.
I don't know how much that was, but
I'm actually going to look it up. I'm going to look it up. Josh, you keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that was a great battle. You mentioned the Mercedes making the decision. I think to me, I think it's an obvious decision. And the reason you're delaying it is there's probably some contract wordage that they can't make a decision before a certain point. But you also want to see, okay, Bottas, you have a few races here. Make them count. Prove to us why you deserve to come back. Rob, you found out?
Yeah, I found out. Okay, so I guess they did score more than 10 points, but in both seasons for Stoffel Van Dorn, I guess he scored 13 points in 2017 and 12 points in 2018. So just because they were scoring points doesn't mean they were doing. They were literally finishing like 8th and 9th most races.
But Russell and these Williams cars the past 3 years have not.
Actually, yeah. This is true. In 2018, when he scored 12 points, Stoffel Van Dorn's highest finish was 8th. He retired from 2 races, and everything else was basically a disaster. However, in 2017, he retired from 5 races and scored as high as 7th, but he only finished in the points 3 times as opposed to 4 times in 2018. But he scored 7th at Singapore, 7th at Malaysia, and then 10th at Hungary. Everything else was either retirement or out of the points. So yeah, the McLaren Honda was garbage. And so I can imagine that Alonso probably understands where George Russell is coming from when you're just so desperate to score points, and that finishing 10th is just like a win for you.
Yeah. Well, and so we talk about the over policing. We talk about that Hamilton potentially had damage under his car, but let's talk about Max Verstappen for a second, because last week we failed to mention that it was the first time he'd won back-to-back races in his career. Now he's won 3 in a row, which obviously is the first time he's done in his career. That's a 15th career win. I just kind of wanted to note this because this is interesting to me, and I think it's completely plausible that this can happen. Just by the confidence that he and that team is certainly growing, and is just amounting each race. He has tied Jenson Button for 18th all time on F1's win list. If he wins 8 more races this season, that puts him at 23 wins, and tied for 12th with Nelson Piquet and Nico Rosberg. If he just needs 8 more wins. Now, I know there's going to be races and tracks coming up this year that Mercedes might have a better shot at competing and beating the Red Bull car. But obviously, you gotta have things go right. Gotta have good pit stops. Gotta might hit your marks, etc., etc. But I just thought that'd be interesting to throw out there. And so let's look at the points. Max Verstappen has a 32-point lead over Lewis Hamilton. When was the last time Lewis Hamilton was more than a race worth points out of first place?
I gotta tell you something. I don't know when the last time that was, but if you told me this was gonna happen at the beginning of this year, I would have said no way. I would not have believed you that Verstappen would be this far ahead of Hamilton. I really, honestly, excuse me, I really am surprised that Max has beaten Hamilton so consistently the past several weeks and so easily. Yeah. I mean, it really seems like Mercedes is weakened. When you even see Lando Norris getting a podium, when he starts qualifying second, when the Mercedes isn't even on the front row of qualifying. Yeah. I mean, this is... I never expected this. Like, this is insane. I mean, it seems like all Red Bull had to do was bring in Perez, and Mercedes comes crashing down.
I think there's a little bit of, we talk about the Red Bull poaching people. That's happened over the course of this year a little bit with their engine stuff. Their engine reliability has certainly improved as well. I mean, I feel like last year you're saying I have a power issue. I have power issue. Whether it was Albon, but usually it was Verstappen. Oddly, that always had the power issue. Like, why can't you get the guy who's finishing 8th and 9th in each race have the power issue, not the guy who's actually contending for wins and podiums? But I digress. This is a very interesting season, and I'm welcoming it a lot. So I'm interested to see how the next two races go. Let's see. I'm going to pull up because I can't remember how many more races they have before the summer break. As I pull up the 2021 schedule. All right. So they have Silverstone and the Hungaroring. So the British Grand Prix and the Hungarian Grand Prix. Coming up, and then they have the 4-week break before Spa. So, and I think we probably will know who will be the Mercedes driver here. So these are two key races for not only Hamilton and his championship pursuit, but also for Bottas and in his proving his worth to be a Mercedes driver in 2022. So, I don't have much more to say for the F1 racer than that. I mean, it's a solid race. There was some good racing throughout the field, despite the over policing. I like that they ignored Verstappen because he was just blowing everyone away. I mean, just like he was out there, Jean Girarding this race, one-handed driving with a cup of tea. And maybe even reading a book on his iPad, on his phone from Amazon ebook or Google ebook or whatever. So I mean, it's an easy day for him. Rob, anything else from Formula One there before we move on to IndyCar?
I think we should try and move on as quickly as we can.
Let's go on to IndyCar then. Rob, this was certainly a strategy race that I thought Newgarden had nailed, and then at the end. Just almost threw it away for a third straight week.
Well, I've been very critical about Mid-Ohio, and this was a standard Mid-Ohio race. This was not last year's Mid-Ohio race. This was a standard Mid-Ohio race, where it was not very entertaining, but at the very least, the ending few laps were entertaining. Yeah. I shouldn't say it wasn't entertaining. There were moments. I think there were moments. It started out very entertaining. There was a lot of action in the start when you can get it started, and then. But I don't know if that was so much entertaining as it was annoying.
I think it was annoying if you were fans of Andretti Autosport or Will Power.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. But overall, I would have to say that it was a standard Mid-Ohio race. And at the very end there, I was actually genuinely intrigued because I thought Ericsson was going to have a shot at Newgarden.
Yeah, I think he need one more lap.
He did probably need one more lap. I think Newgarden was able to hold him off just the right amount. I think you're right. I think if there was one more lap, I think it would have been a lot harder for Newgarden to hold off Ericsson because Ericsson was right there. He was right there. He was fighting tooth and nail until they crossed that finish line. And speaking of Marcus Ericsson, I just want to give a shout out to him in general. This is this is the most fun I've seen him drive since I've watched him in GP2. And I've always said Ericsson is a talented driver. I said that earlier when I was talking about Tatiana Calderon. Look, Marcus Ericsson is somebody who people kind of just wrote off as being not that great for F1. Most people weren't super thrilled about him in GP2. I mean, he did win races, but nobody really ever... I don't think people saw Ericsson as a future F1 champion. And he isn't, naturally, but that doesn't mean that he's not a good driver. He's still a very good driver. He still deserved his tenure in F1. I would say he definitely deserved his tenure in F1. I wish he could have been to some better teams and had a little bit more success outside of Sauber. And Caterham, good God, poor guy. He was at Caterham his first year. That probably humbled him a lot. Well, he had Kamui Kobayashi as his teammate too, which was also pretty nice. And that probably helped him learn a lot too, because Kamui is arguably one of the better drivers that really was never in a top F1 ride. But, Marcus Ericsson has just been on such a tear this year. He's got a race win this year, and I think he's really gelling with this Ganassi team. And I think that's great because he seems to be learning a lot from Scott Dixon, passing on a lot to Alex Palou, and serving as a mentor to him, and learning a lot more about oval racing, I think, from Tony Kanaan and Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson might be a lot of help when it comes to racing in an IndyCar, an oval car, and a road course, but I think Johnson could very well, as well as Kanaan, could be pointed to as a reason for his better success on ovals this year as well. So I look at Marcus Ericsson as just being one of the more improved IndyCar drivers of this year, and it's really great to see because he's somebody out there that, like I said, I think he has a chip on his shoulder a little bit. He has something to prove, and I'm really glad that he's getting the opportunity to go out there and show what he can do. I mean, he has a great ride in Chip Ganassi's cars, and I think I just am really impressed with him. If I should have given him the outstanding performance, but I didn't, but he was definitely considered, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, Chip Ganassi had 3 of their 4 cars in the top 4. Those 4 cars, the Ericsson, Palou, and Dixon, are gelling really well. They're the team to beat right now. Rossi got his best finish of the year. Grosjean was 7th. I think he could have had a better day.
Grosjean had a very mediocre day, but to bring it home 7th was impressive. Yeah. And here's the other thing I want to say. I hate you, Santino Ferrucci. I hate your guts, but that was a good drive on Sunday.
Great drive. I was about to say, like O'Ward and him snuck out top 10s that were maybe top 15 efforts there. So, and Colton Herta had a bad day, had 2 mistakes on pit road. You can't have that. You can't have that, especially in a race where you're
not his day. And that really just did. I mean, I was sitting there the whole time thinking, man, Herta might have this race right where he wants it until the first pit stop he comes in, or not the first pit stop, until he comes in.
It was
the first pit stop? Okay,
yeah,
I couldn't remember
both. Yeah.
But he comes in and, can't get the fueling works. And then he comes in the second stop, stalls the car. And it's just like, dude, rebounded. You could have rebounded from the fuel hose. Nobody would have, hated you for that because that's not out of your control. But when you stall the car and you're having a bad day, yikes. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be him.
Compounds the issue for sure. Let's move on to Cup at Road America. Sorry, I had to do it again there, folks. I'm sorry. First time Cup at Road America since 1956, and Tim Flock won that race. Rob, I didn't get to see the last 14. I was watching the race. I was doing a little research for the segment later, and I had to do that. And I only got to watch up until the 14 laps ago, but I know how the last 14 laps basically went. I enjoyed the Cup cars at Road America. I don't know why I wouldn't. The Xfinity cars have put on a dang good show there since 2010 when they started going.
I sat there and I thought, NASCAR could bring the worst possible package here, and I still could guarantee you that the drivers will put on a good race. And they did. They did. They didn't put on a great package, race. But the drivers still put on a good race.
The what?
I said they didn't bring a terrible package, so that's good. Even if they did, but I was saying even if they did, the drivers would have put on a good show no matter what. So we're lucky we still had a good package and a good show as well. I was very impressed. I was really actually excited for this. I still hate the fact that we're not talking about a race at Daytona today.
I know.
I hate that. I wish we were. But this is actually, I think a lot of people were asking about it. Bob Pockers, I think, posed the question. Maybe Dave Coleman did as well. He's of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. I had a great conversation with him a couple of years ago at IMS. I just wanted to say, I know he doesn't listen to the show, but I want to say hi to Dave. And he probably doesn't remember me or know who I am either, but I want to say hi to him anyway because I appreciated the time he took to talk to me at IMS. It was the year when Jim. It was the year that Jim had taken the Colts job, and we hadn't hired the racing reporter yet, and he was there working for us at the Brickyard that year, and I really appreciated him taking the time to talk to me about it. Just talk to me, shoot the breeze. We were at practice. Not much was going on, and he took time to shoot the breeze with me and talk with me, and I appreciated that. But anyway, there was questions being asked about whether or not Road America is now the new NASCAR 4th of July tradition. And to be honest with you, as much as I hate the fact that it's not at Daytona, I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this. This is way better than Indy. I'll say that 100 times over. This is way better than it being in Indianapolis. I like this Road America being here. This is a very, very good. I guess if they're gonna do this, if this was what they're gonna do, they don't want to run Daytona as a firecracker 400 anymore. If that's dead in the water, what have you. Then this is a fine replacement. I still hate it, but this is a good replacement because that was a good race on Sunday.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was good. I mean, great for the fans. I mean, it's just a lot of space. You can see a lot of different action. It's just road racing and 4th of July goes well together, and NBC did a great job packing it all in, and I think they did a really good job of transitioning from the end of the IndyCar race to basically we're starting the Cup race. So there wasn't an hour of pre-race on NBC before the Cup race got going, so good move there. But I wanted to say one of my favorite points of this race was Matt DiBenedetto and Austin Cindric battling for the lead. I really thought like this isn't so much looking into the future, but Matt DiBenedetto is saying, hey, I know you're coming up to Cup next year. I know you're supposed to be in this 21 car, but I deserve to be in it. I'm going toe-to-toe with one of the best road course racers in NASCAR right now, and that's Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric is one of the best road course racers right now in all of NASCAR.
After seeing Cindric's qualifying at COTA and now at Road America, I am waiting. This is what really bothers me is if Cindric races IMS or the Roval.
Yeah.
I am waiting for this guy to win. I think he's going to do it. If this is the thing that bothers me, though, he's usually running an R&D car, so it's going to fall apart at some point during the race. It didn't during the Daytona 500, which I also thought he was going to win at one point.
He could have won any of these, really just about 3 or 4 of these races that he's been in.
I mean, if he doesn't have a mechanical issue, what broke on the car? Rear sway bar, rear track bar?
I can't remember. I think it was an axle.
Okay, so something related to the axle, to the tires, the rear end housing, and whatnot.
Yeah.
I really thought if he doesn't have that problem, he wins this race. I truthfully do, and not to mention, but Chase Elliott starting 34th position, and he wins this race. Kyle Busch started last.
Yeah,
which is finished what, second or third?
He finished third.
What was it, third? I think
Bell finished second.
Sweeping the weekend at Road America.
Yeah.
He finished second? He did finish second? Okay, so
he finished third. He finished third.
Okay. So he finished third. We were that close to Kyle Busch sweeping the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, we were that close. And we seriously, this is the thing that's crazy, is you think you can cripple Kyle Busch. You think, make him start last at a road course, at a 4-mile road course. That'll make it hard for him. No, finish this third. No, NBD. Oh, put him in Road America, a place he's never driven before in the Xfinity Series. I bet you he won't win. No, he goes out and wins. It's like,
well, that race, I would argue he was the 4th best car. In that, I would say, watching that race, to me, I think circumstances that win fell into his lap.
Okay, fine, you can say that.
I don't think Kyle Busch, and I wrote this in my thing for Front Stretch. I said I don't think he was the favorite to win that race. I don't think he was. And you can't say that too often about Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series, that he wasn't the favorite.
Even that being said, dude still won. You can't cripple Kyle Busch. Yeah. You can't cripple Kyle Busch and keep him out of victory lane. If Kyle Busch has the drive and he has the car underneath him, he'll do it.
He'll do it.
And that's why I'm hoping that the next gen car, when the next gen car comes out, I hope that it puts the driving back in the driver's hands so that Kyle Busch can go out there and do this kind of thing every single week so that his haters just shut. I mean, look, I get why people hate Kyle Busch. I get it. But at some point, his people who just love to hate this guy have to stop and appreciate how good of a driver he is. I mean, you do this. Jeff Gordon, lots of people had to do with this with Jeff Gordon at some point. You had to just stop and appreciate just how good not only he was, but Ray Evernham was. Mm-hmm. You had to just stop. And then when you took Evernham away from him, you think that's going to cripple him. He goes out and he still wins a championship. You think, okay, that's going to cripple Gordon. No, Gordon still goes out there and he wins 83 some odd races in his entire.
Sorry, 93. Huh? 93.
93. Sorry, excuse 93. me. 93 races in his entire career, and you're going to sit here and at some point, all those Gordon haters that were Earnhardt fans back in the day had to stop and appreciate what they were witnessing. These Kyle Busch haters are going to have the same thing happen at some point. They're going to have to stop and witness and just appreciate what you're witnessing. You are witnessing the greatest driver of this time, of this era, going out there and doing what he does best every single week and passing his knowledge on to his son, who is probably going to come up and do the same thing in the next 20 years. So get ready for that. When Brexton gets up to Cup, get ready for that, everybody, because that's inevitable.
Yeah. Well, last thing I wanted to point out here, good day, another good day for Chip Ganassi Racing. The summer here, ever since Charlotte, they have turned it up. You know,
Chastain looked good, and this is what bothers me, is if Chastain doesn't have a ride next year, I'm going to be really mad, because Chastain has had an excellent summer. He has shown that he can compete, and he can compete at a high level in Cup.
Well, I never thought he couldn't, and I don't understand why the naysayers.
Some people did,
and I just didn't get them. Like, okay, great. He's been driving a Spire Motorsports car that wasn't great prior to this. Okay, yeah, he's going to finish 32nd. He was driving a premium motorsports car. Yeah, he's going to finish 36th. Okay,
in Xfinity, he's racing for Johnny Davis. What more do you want?
And he's outperforming Johnny Davis's equipment. To be fair, I'm
to be fair, Landon Castle also does, but they don't put him in the car enough.
Yeah, I would think you know he's adjusted to this car. He's adjusted to the different packages here. Ross Chastain knows what he's doing. I think, Rob, what you're seeing, what I'm seeing, I think it's more so likely that Kurt Busch could be going to 2311 next year. I hope that Ross Chastain gets his opportunity to interview for a drive with Trackhouse, and I think Trackhouse would be silly to dismiss him from their short list. And you know they've got a short list, right? And I don't know who else they could put in there or would put in there. Do you want to go with experience? Do you want to go with youth? I think Ross Chastain fits both of those.
Hell, they could. Hey, if the Keselowski thing happens and someone has to be cut, they could sweep up Ryan Newman. I mean, and I would hate that for Chastain, but I mean, they could go that route too.
They could. I just don't know if that's. I can't see him going to Trackhouse though. I can't.
You really can't. I mean, I wasn't saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, but I can't see it happening.
We'll see how silly season works out. I mean, we're still in the very, very early stages of silly season.
Yeah,
we'll probably get crazier like around August and September, but
yeah. Once you start figuring out who's going to have the charters, who's going to have full-time, is Colin going to have one or two?
Once that first domino falls, once that Keselowski domino falls, I think
which is going to come around September.
Things are going to fall into place.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here, Rob. The weekend wrap-up, let's wrap it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, Xfinity Series, we already mentioned it. Road America, Kyle Busch won the race. The ARCA Menard Series West was at Irwindale. Hey, that was cool. I caught that on a re-air, not a re-air, but like I watched the replay of it on Track Pass. I love Irwindale. I hope that track stays around for a long time. I love Irwindale so much. IMSA was in Watkins Glen again. DPI was won by Whelan Engineering, Pipo Durrani, Felipe Nasr, another guy who is teammates with Ericsson, who everybody kind of wrote off as being kind of like a pay driver or something. Look at what this guy does in IMSA right now. This is what I was saying about Tatiana Calderon earlier. Is not everybody's cut out for F1, and sometimes drivers just need to try a little bit of everything before they find their niche. Look at what Nazar's doing right now. Yeah. He tried a little bit. He tried a little IndyCar. He tried some F1. He's tried some touring cards. He's finding his niche now in IMSA, and he's winning a lot. And nobody's going to sit there and say Felipe Nasr is not a bad driver because everybody knows he is. He's a good driver. And if you don't know, then that's your problem, and you haven't watched Felipe Nasr like you should be. Anyway, in LMP2, that was PR1 Matthias in Motorsports, Mikael Jensen and Ben Keating won that. LMP3 in that class, Rally Motorsports, Felipe Fraga and Gar Robinson. GTLM, Corvette Racing, Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor. GTD, Vassar Sullivan Racing, Jack Hawksworth, Aaron Tillitz. W Series was had their second race at the Red Bull Ring, and that race again was on beIN Sports Extra, the free channel. Actually, had fine coverage. I don't think it inserted a lot of commercials. I think it was actually fairly decent coverage from what I recall. So, but Jamie Chadwick won that, and that was only a matter of time. Chadwick's the best in the W Series, and Chadwick has continuously proven why she's one of the best young prospects in motorsports right now, who's probably not going to have a legitimate shot at anything. Like I said, she was with Prema in Formula Regional last year, but guess what Prema did to her? They gave her like literally nothing. They focused all of their attention on Petikoff and Leclerc, and they shoved Leclerc in F3 because Leclerc's the golden boy, and we all know that. Petikoff had no money, so he had a little bit of money, so he was the second, and then the third and fourth guys, I'll just screw them, right? That's how it works in F3. It's how it works in regional series, in feeder series. It's all about who brings the most money, you get the best car. If you don't bring the most money, you don't get the best car. That's what happens. Unless you're a really good driver like Logan Sargent, and you could take the worst car on the grid and put it on a podium only for the race stewards to rip it away from you because of BS reasons. I'll talk about that in a minute. Like this. So Formula 3, Red Bull Ring Race 1 was won by Dennis Hauger. And yeah, like I said, Logan Sargent was supposed to be on the podium for this, but he got taken away because the FIA is stupid. Whatever. I'm not totally upset about this. In Race 2, hey, David Schumacher, the son of Ralph Schumacher. Mm-hmm. Ralph's son, not Michael's son. This is not Mick. We're talking about Ralph Schumacher's son. David won his first Formula 3 race. This is huge because a lot of people were questioning David Schumacher's abilities last year. He wasn't really with a good team. He moved into a different team this year, and now he's winning. And that's all you need to know about him. He's a Schumacher. He'll be fine. He'll get there on name, but if you can win some stuff, it helps a lot. Trust me.
Oh, yeah. Winning cares a lot.
Red Bull Ring Race 3, Formula 3, that was won by Frederick Vesti, the other Prema driver. He was the third guy there. He brought money. I forgot he brought money. Petikoff didn't bring money, but Petikoff was a better driver, but he didn't bring enough money. USF 2000 was at Mid-Ohio. Michael D'Orlando won Race 1. Kiko Porto won Race 2. Michael D'Orlando won Race 3. Indy Pro 2000 was at Mid-Ohio as well. Christian Rasmussen won Race 1. Hunter McElroy won Race 2. And Indy Lights was swept by Kyle Kirkwood at Mid-Ohio. And that is it for the rundown of the weekend wrap-up. Let's jump into outstanding performance real quick here. Josh, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm going with Ernie Francis Jr. on this one. I was really, again, the kid's got limited oval experience. All right, as you noted before we were talking, you couldn't figure out if he'd won an oval race before this or not.
I really wish I had somebody in the booth in the media center with me to answer this question while I was writing, but I had nobody up there.
Yeah. Maybe you should try and find his mom and dad, but that would have been a little weird. But I'm going with Ernie Francis Jr. on this one because he is just time and time again, he has been the most consistent driver, in my opinion, through these 4 races in SRX. He is continuously marched to the front wherever he started, whether it was heat or a race. He's gone up. He's made his way up front every single time. And this race, he held his elbows out against Scott Speed. I mean, there was no question about that. He was not going to let Scott Speed go or get past him without a fight. And I enjoyed that. I could have watched that battle for another 10 laps. And for him to win at IRP, great job on Ernie Francis' part. It's going to be fun to watch this kid, run these next 2 races at Slinger and Nashville Fairgrounds.
Yeah, I said it earlier. I was talking about Kyle Busch, and I'm giving it to Kyle Busch, and the reasons why I've stated. The fact of the matter is you can't cripple him, and he had one of the best weekends. I mean, there were a lot of other drivers out there this weekend. I mentioned it. I hate his guts, but Ferrucci had a great run. Ericsson had a great run. Lando Norris had a great run. George Russell had a great run. I'm thinking about Ernie Francis, like you said, had a great run. I'm thinking about all those guys who are just deserving of it, but at the same time, I don't think any of those drivers put on near the weekend that Kyle Busch did. Kyle Busch goes out in the Xfinity Series, wins the race. I mean, you can argue if it was gifted to him or not, what have you. But at the same time, he goes out there, starts last in the Cup Series, and finishes third, and actually leads. He was leading laps in the race too. Like, I mean, you cannot cripple this guy. He's just the best driver out there right now. And if you're not able to see that, I feel like you're blind. I mean, yes, Chase Elliott's a great driver, and I don't want to take anything away from Chase Elliott, but he's not doing what Kyle Busch is doing. What Kyle Busch is doing is unheard of. Kyle Busch is just winning and running well, and it doesn't matter where he starts. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter, how many penalties he has. He's still going to end up front. He's still going to end up at the front by the end of the race, and he's going to say, we just were off today, or we had a bad day or something, or it was all driver or something. He's going to trash talk the car and basically prove that he's best driver because he hates the cars. The cars suck to drive. The cars are hard to drive for him, and he's still able to go out there and pull off incredible feats like he's being able to. So it's hard to not give it to Kyle Busch this week. And like I said, I know it seems unfair. You want to give it to like an underdog. I should give it to Lando Norris. I should give it to Marcus Ericsson. I should give it to Ferrucci. I never will. But I'm sorry, Kyle Busch had the better weekend, and that's my final answer.
All right. I mean, I can't argue with you on that one. I think you got a good one. All right, so let's move on to the upshift, downshift here. We got 4 questions here. Once again, upshift means we agree. Downshift means we disagree. We might even throw it into the neutral because we can't make up our mind, or we don't have enough information to make a decision. So, play along. We post these questions on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So, let us know what your thoughts are as well, and in your feature paint scheme too. I didn't name drop that earlier. So for question 1 here, this is kind of a hypothetical. A championship point for leading at least one lap in a race should return to NASCAR. Do you upshift or downshift?
I upshift on this, but I'm going to add a point that I think I think will be better.
Go ahead.
So we have the idea of consistency. We want to reward consistency. That's what everybody clamors for, is rewarding consistency. Okay, so what NASCAR did was they created the stages, and they said positions 1 through 10, they get stage points, and if you win the race, you get a playoff point. If you win the stage, you get a playoff point. How's this? How about this? How about we do this? How about you lead a lap, you get a playoff point if you're in the playoffs. If you're in the playoffs, you get a playoff point. If you're not in the playoffs, you get a bonus point to help you get into the playoffs. Why do I say that? Why I say this specifically because it will then you have a further reward of consistency. So so what this is important for is those drivers and those teams that make gambles with 2 laps to go. They pit with obviously they're out of contention for winning the stage, but they still were leading the race for most of the day. So you don't want to penalize those people. If you want to reward consistency, you don't want to penalize those people making strategy calls before the end of stages. So you say, okay, you let a lap during the race, so we'll give you a stage point for leading that. We'll give you a playoff point for leading that lap. Now you can earn another playoff point if you win the stage, but in the event that you don't win the stage, you'll still get to keep that playoff point for leading a lap. That's how I think it should be done. Now because I think you're getting messy and you're kind of, if you give just away generic bonus points, I don't think you're rewarding the consistency that these 5 bonus points that the 5 bonus points of old used to. I think if you reward the playoff point, which means you go further in the playoffs to begin with, that means you have more incentive to try and stay out and lead a lap. You have more incentive to try different things. You could crazy up that strategy. You don't have to just, decide, okay, we're going to pit before the stage or we're going to pit after the stage. It's much more than that now. It's much more than that. You can add a lot more to the race, I think, if you put a playoff point up for grabs rather than just a generic championship point. Because I think, like I said, that playoff point is going to carry over into the playoffs. You want to reward consistency, that's a better way to reward it. You still got to make them hard to come by. So like I said, if you're locked into the playoffs, then it's a playoff point. If you're not locked in, then it's a championship point to help you get into the playoffs. That's personally how I think it should be divided. I understand it might be a little bit muddy. There might be some people who disagree with me on this, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But if we're in the box that we're in, we can't change any of the rules other than this rule. That's how I think it should be implemented. So I would upshift on that.
I see where you're coming from, and I do think that's a slightly bit muddy, but I do see where you're coming from. I upshift because I think it would kind of like encourage these guys who are on the fringe, where every point matters. You look at like a Kurt Busch entering this week; he's 3 points good, or maybe he was a little bit more than I think it was 3 points good. I lead a lap. All right, I got one more point coming my way. Doesn't matter where I lead that, I get an extra point. And even if you want to say, if you lead a lap in stage 1, you get a championship point. You lead a lap in stage 2, you get a second championship point. You lead a lap in the final stage. To me, that gets added up a little bit too much and just muddies it up. I say if you just lead one lap. So Matt DiBenedetto, his goal could be, all right, our goal is to try to lead at least one lap per race through green flag pit cycle. And let's say you have the opportunity to do that. That's 26 points at the end of the regular season that you've accumulated that can be the difference between you missing or making the playoffs. That's what's kind of like where I'm going to come from it, is that I don't think you should get a playoff point from it, because I feel like you need to officially win something to do that, whether that be a stage or a race. And that's why I labeled it a championship point, I guess, in the question. But I see where you're coming from, too. I completely see where you're coming from with the consistency, because that's what they're trying to reward. Next question. Chip Ganassi Racing's departure from NASCAR does not affect the chances of Honda entering NASCAR. Do you upshift or downshift?
I don't really know the chances. I don't even know if the chances are good or bad. I really don't know. I'm putting it in neutral because I have no extra outside information in this. I have no idea if Honda is leaning towards or not entering NASCAR. I mean, I know it's been rumored. Yeah. I know that they've been they've had conversations, but as far as I know, I don't think anything is actually in the process of happening. I think it's just been people, shooting everywhere, just kind of chatting it up and saying, "Oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Honda entered a team in NASCAR? Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. You want to do it? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know." That's kind of what it seems like the conversations are at right now. So I don't think it had anything to do with it at all. If anything, I think the two were completely independent, personally.
I think the biggest thing that has kind of happened in Brett Griffin doesn't mind. He's not running full time. He doesn't have to, or being spotting full time. He kind of coughed Honda a couple weeks ago in a Door Bumper Clear episode when they were talking about that. I actually am going to downshift because I think it does affect it. Chip Ganassi Racing runs Honda in IndyCar, and if you wanted to enter NASCAR, who better else to get than Chip Ganassi Racing, who is at best the number 3 team at Chevrolet. All right, they're never going to be on higher than Hendrick or Richard Childress Racing. Those are always going to be the two golden boys of Chevrolet, of Team Chevrolet in NASCAR. So go after them. The only way I would say I upshift and say it doesn't affect is if NASCAR says, okay, if you commit to NASCAR to entering the Cup Series, we will increase the field size to 43, and we will institute 2 or 3 more charters that will be given to you for your teams of choice, types of deal. Like you start Honda NASCAR Racing, you have 2 charters. You're guaranteed to have 2 cars in each race. All right, that'd be the only way I say no. But that right there is complete speculation and total just kind of idea popping. So I got a downshift because I think this totally affects the whole Honda entering NASCAR game for me, whether they were thinking about it or not, how serious they were thinking about it. To me, I can't upshift or go into neutral on this. I got to downshift.
You mentioned how Honda would go to Chip Ganassi for NASCAR because he runs our engines. It just got me thinking. I was thinking about, okay, well, what are there any other NASCAR owners in IndyCar right now? And I was like, oh yeah, there is one, Rick Ware. Oh boy. I mean, I'm not talking about Penske because Penske wouldn't do anything. Penske wouldn't have anything to do with it. But Rick Ware runs Hondas with his partnership with Dale Coyne. So, can you imagine Rick Ware Honda racing?
Well, we'll see how many charters Rick Ware has beginning in 2022.
Bailey Curry, driver of the number 52 Honda.
Well,
yeah, he's our flagship drivers, Bailey Curry and Cody Ware and JJ Yaley and probably Reed Sorensen. Who knows? Why not? Throw in Reed there.
All right, let's move on to the next question because we're approaching 10 minutes to 2 hours. Santino Ferrucci is a top contender for one of Andretti Autosport's 2 open seats for 2022. Do you upshift or downshift him, Rob? Yes, I wrote this question specifically with you in mind.
Yeah, fine, I upshift. Okay, Ferrucci, I hate your guts, but talent, gotta recognize talent, man. You're good, okay? I never said you weren't. I never said you weren't good. I never said you weren't worthy of getting the rides you have. I just said, to be fair, you have never said that. I haven't. I never said he was a bad driver. I just hate his guts. I said, yeah, fine. Why not? Go to Andretti. Why not? Upshift.
I upshift as well. I think Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan has expressed kind of their interest in maybe going to a 3-car operation full time next year. I would, based off how he's running with their equipment, how he's meshing with the team, I think it'd be crazy for them not to want to consider him. But Andretti Autosport, yeah, you want talent, you want this fresh young face, many years ahead of him in racing. If you could get him, put him alongside Herta and Rossi, don't know how that chemistry is going to go. And of course, Hinchcliffe and Hunter-Reay could both return next year.
God, I thought about him and Rossi together.
Yeah, this would be a really that 3 right there would be a 3 interesting dinner party.
Oh my God.
So I gotta upshift. There's no reason for me not to upshift on that one. So yeah. All right. Last question here. Martin Truex Jr. told Racing Boys that if the next gen car isn't fun, he quote won't hang around too long unquote. Do you fear that the next gen car could lead to a mass exodus of seasoned veterans if the car is not to their liking? Do you upshift or downshift?
Well, plain and simple, I think the Gen 6 did that. I think Tony Stewart bolted because the car sucked. Be honest with you. I mean, I know people are going to bring up age, people are going to bring up his injuries, people are going to bring up him having fun, but if the car was fun to drive, he wouldn't have wanted to hang up the NASCAR steering wheel. If it is that I actually do. I actually am going to upshift. Truex saying this does actually concern me because I feel like I just sat here and praised Kyle Busch. Dude, if Kyle Busch drives the next gen car and says it sucks, I don't think Kyle Busch could go drive anything he wanted to.
Yeah.
He could go be a dad. He could go be a husband. He could go race IndyCar. He could go race sports cars. He has nothing else to prove. He could go be Jimmy Johnson and just go have fun in IndyCar. He's got nothing to prove at this point. Everybody knows how good he is. If he's not having fun, he should go do something where he's going to have fun. He should go be talented and have fun doing it. I actually do agree. I think Truex is right. I think, if NASCAR is not going to put time into developing a car that's fun to drive, that's challenging to drive, and that produces good racing, especially after all the complaints that people have heard for the past 15 years since the Car of Tomorrow has been around. People have been complaining about the quality of racing, how fun it is to race, how fun the cars are to drive, and all this other stuff. Look, dude, if NASCAR is not focusing on those things like Truex is worried about, then they have a serious problem, and I would be concerned to see more veterans leave, because I don't think Truex has no reason to hang around if he's not having fun. Hey, what else does he have to prove? I mean, Truex has dominated races. He's dominated the 2017 season. He's curb stomped the field in 2017. He's proven everything he needs to prove. Why the heck should he hang around if he's not having fun? The guys who are going to hang around are the guys who are going to need to prove stuff. The guys who've already proven themselves, like Truex, like Busch, like any other, like Harvick. What the heck do they have to prove anymore? They have nothing to prove. Just get out if they're not having fun. Go live their lives. That should be a legitimate concern for NASCAR. And I hope that they're taking Truex's comments here seriously.
I have nothing else to add. Shift. I agree. It certainly has been a narrative since the COT became a permanent fixture in 08 that, in the constant changing of packages. I think Tony had a lot of beef with the way NASCAR was being led in the leadership. I think that was a big part of his retirement from NASCAR. But I do agree the car. Why can't we zero in on this is the package that we're going to run for 3 years? Why do we have to say, okay, crap, these guys are learning this. Why do we got to change it? I just don't. I think that's a problem. Let's figure out what the best package is for the racing, what gets the fans most excited. And I think we've seen plenty of races this year. Nashville, Darlington, Dover, Road America. All right. Short tracks. All right. These are the race tracks that have all the same package in mind. And if they're not looking at that, where these guys are having fun, the car is in their hands, they have to work at conserving their equipment, whether that be tires or the car itself, mechanically.
Look, man, if the drivers aren't having fun, the fans aren't going to be having fun either.
You're exactly right. All right, Rob, 5 minutes till 2 hours. I still have to do this rollers featured race.
All right, let's hurry it up. Let's go.
Yeah, I probably should run through this really quickly. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to speak fluently in sophisticated English.
Did you know that most podcasts allow you to actually speed up the speaking? So you can do that if you really hate how long we go. You can always speed us up.
I did not know that. That's a very good point. All right, so I'm going to start. All right, so today I'm going to talk about the 1997 Florida Dodge Dealers 400K Miami-Dade Homestead Motorsports Complex. It's a mouthful. Yes, it is. So this race was the third of 26 races for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in 1997, and it was held on Sunday, March 16th. And guess what? There was an Xfinity race a few hours after this race as well. The race was on TNN. Mike Joy was the play-by-play with Buddy Baker as the color analyst. Steve Burns and Mike Hodgwood were the pit road reporters. The track, later to be named Homestead Miami Speedway, was at the time a copy of Indianapolis Motor Speedway if IMS was a 1.5-mile track. Specifically, this track on this day was 1.5172 miles in length. It had 8 degrees of banking in the corners, 3 degrees on the straights. The front and back stretch were both 2,100 feet in length. The race was 400 kilometers, 167 laps, and halftime was approximately around lap 85. Kind of NASCAR had discretion on that one. And it was the second truck race at Homestead. The last road qualifiers were Dennis Setzer and Randy McDonald. They transferred into the race after a 25-lap qualifying race the day before. Those who failed to qualify were Frank Kimmel, Toby Porter, TJ Clark, Bob Brubeck, Michael Cohen, Terry McCarthy, John Levy, Jim Brown, Randy Tolsma, Blaze Alexander, Bobby Dotter, Ronnie Newman, Bob Schaap, Jerry Glanville, and Terry Cook. And Rob Rizzo, who started 35th, he started the race with a broken shoulder. Yeah, he started the race with a broken shoulder. Now, that occurred on practice earlier the week on Thursday. Rizzo ran a little over 30 laps before relief driver Kenny Hendrick took over. So, don't think that would be allowed today. You have a broken shoulder, you're not climbing into the car, and you're not starting the race. No way. Tough guy, I'll give him that much credit. Brian Cunningham spun early. He brought the first caution. I did bring out the caution. He later did bring out caution, but he spun, and there was no caution. I'm like, this is great. There's no one around. See if he gets restarted. And he went. No caution on that one. Sorry, I misspoke there. A few laps into the race, though, Mike Joyce shared that the next day at 6 a.m., March 17th, the track was going to start its reconfiguration from a rectangular oval like Indianapolis to a more traditional oval. So the Homestead that we saw, if you watched the 2001 race at Homestead Miami Speedway, that's the track they reconfigured it into, so it more looked like Atlanta. Of course, Atlanta at this time was going through its own reconfiguration from a traditional oval, to the quad oval it is today. The first caution was on lap 13. It was likely from Stacey Compton, who made contact with Toby Butler when they and Jay Sauter went 3 wide into turn 3, which was kind of a no-no at the track. Compton had a cut-down tire, debris, and tire carcass were on the track there. Drivers could come down for fuel because they couldn't go all the way to lap 85 on 1 tank of fuel. All right? Now, they could not change tires until the halftime break at lap 85. So the rule was, that day, NASCAR said, hey, we're going to change the rules on you the day of the race. We're not going to have competition cautions for you to come down, take fuel, and you won't lose a spot on pit road. We're going to have live pit stops that only require fuel. All right? And you can take it during green flag pit stops. You can take it during a caution. Now, they have plenty of cautions to do this with, but they had to pit. I just found that very interesting. It was kind of more of a one-lane racetrack like Indianapolis, but they were able to, get runs off the corners. It didn't matter which corner it was. You got to run. You were able to pass, get down below, get that run, and there you are. You're around. And if you were caught on the outside, don't get caught on the outside because you're going to go backwards. Speaking of, can't change tires, Barry Bodine was penalized 5 laps for not having a flat tire. Yes, his team changed a tire that he thought was flat. It wasn't. He was penalized because you couldn't change tires before the halftime break, outside of the halftime break. Unless, of course, it was flat. If you actually had a flat tire like Stacey Compton, you could put a fresh one on. You can only put one fresh one on. Mike Bliss, Joe Ruttman, and Kenny Irwin Jr. were the first to make green flag pit stops in the Craftsman Truck Series history. On lap 71, Brian Refner crashed hard into the outside wall in turn 2. The right side of the truck was pancaked, and the right front was shortened quite a bit. On lap 80, leader Mike Bliss gets blown by the field and eventually stalls on the track. He ran out of fuel. Team might have miscalculated that one just a little bit. And it was also reported during this caution that Jack Sprague had an irritation in his eye. During the upcoming halftime break, they were going to push water in there to flush it out, which they did. Steve Burns interviewed him during the pit stop. The crew members are on the right side of the truck. Steve Burns is on the other side of the wall interviewing Jack Sprague as his tires are getting changed and the fuel is being put in the car. It was great. This is halftime NASCAR at its finest, folks. Kind of similar to if you've been watching SRX, what you've seen there on some of the breaks there. It's very similar to that, except it's not timed. It is timed, but it feels like it's more. Felt like it was more faster paced. Kenny Irwin Jr. during this time even got a portable fan placed in his truck because he was overheating himself. Not his truck, but he was overheating. Advertised during this race. This came a little bit later, but I put it here because I just needed to. That NASCAR Thunder, an all-new and official store of NASCAR, had locations open in Atlanta, Winston-Salem, Knoxville, and Dallas, and with 10 to 12 more planned that year. I'd never heard of this place, so it just obviously didn't last very long. Or I don't know, I just missed it, I guess. Ralph Sanchez, promoter of the track, who was previously with the Miami Grand Prix, told Mike Joy that part of the reason for the reconfiguration, now I should say this took place during the halftime break, that part of the reason for this reconfiguration was safety. Precursor for what was to come in this race. So on lap 144, John Nemechek took a vicious hit to the driver's side door in turn 1. It wasn't long before the broadcast went to commercial, and when the break ended, the scene was surrounded by emergency vehicles and personnel around his number 8 truck. He had spun entering turn 1 and slapped the wall. I mean, nearly square on. And for those of you who haven't seen a replay of this accident, I mean, he couldn't get much more square. Mike Joy did mention that doctors and EMTs were on the scene. The race was eventually red flagged as a helicopter arrived and Nemechek was transported to a nearby hospital. He passed away 5 days later from head injuries on March 21st that he sustained during the crash. It's believed that his head actually hit the wall when his truck made contact. On lap 154, as Mike Skinner and Jay Sauter dueled side by side into turn 4, Jack Sprague pushed the young Kenny Irwin Jr. past the duel, and he led his first career lap in the Truck Series. Sauter, who entered turn 4 second, entered turn 1 fourth. Irwin Jr. would pull away as Skinner and Sprague traded second place amongst themselves. And then on lap 157, another vicious crash occurred in turn 1, same spot. Toby Butler made a move to Jay Sauter's inside as the two entered turn 1. Sauter squeezed him onto the ripple strips. The move turned Sauter, who almost had an identical side slap into the wall as Nemechek did. Butler went right front first into the wall, and what looked to be really full speed when you watched it live and the full pace replay, but he was braking. There was some tire smoke coming out there, but he just didn't have time to brake. Then the TV captured Butler sitting alone in the back of an ambulance, hunched over with his left hand covering his face, as the scene was very reminiscent, as I said, of the one with Nemechek that took place moments earlier. Both these drivers would thankfully be okay and would compete at the next truck race at Phoenix International Raceway on April 20th. Joy shared that Sauter was okay on the broadcast and was just being transported to a local hospital strictly as a precaution. The race restarted on lap 163, and Irwin Jr. nearly crashed on the restart because Sprague, he knew he was coming, and Sprague got on his rear bumper and almost turned him as he went left to pass him going into turn 1. It was quite the save by Irwin Jr. You could tell he had some open wheel background with that one. So Sprague took the lead. With 3 to go, Irwin made a move to Sprague's inside in turns 1 and 2, and the pair stayed that way the rest of the lap. Sprague did lead that one. But with 2 to go, Skinner stuck with Irwin Jr. In the preferred bottom groove into turn 1, and Irwin recaptured the lead. Irwin started to pull away, and then there was nearly a 4-wide battle for second place. All right, this was crazy. This is great racing. So Sprague was up by the wall. Skinner was to his left. Then Mike Bliss, who was now back on the lead lap after falling 2 laps down, was to his left. Chuck Bown, who was in the 99 Jack Roush X-Side Ford, thought about going 4 wide, almost did, but he instead decided to push Bliss past the Chevrolets. Bliss made a valiant charge, but fell short as the young Indianapolis native, Kenny Irwin Jr., won the race, his first career victory in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Brad Daugherty was a co-owner of Kenny Irwin Jr.'s car and was interviewed during this race. Even said he was in NASCAR for the long haul, and he had actually been in NASCAR before. He had been in NASCAR for some time with some Busch Grand National starts with Robert Presley. And of course, he's still involved in NASCAR today as he's part owner of JTG Daugherty Racing. We would sadly lose Kenny Irwin Jr. in a practice crash at New Hampshire on July 7th, 2000. Part of the reason I chose this race this week was to honor his memory, as by the time you're listening to this, it will unfortunately be the anniversary of his passing, but also to honor John Nemechek's memory as well. So, racing reference and the YouTube broadcast. TNN, thank you for help with this one. I enjoy this one. I've been looking forward to watching this race. It really was a great race. If you've never watched it, this is actually we talk about Homestead being a great racetrack right now with its current configuration, but they put on 2 really good races there on this with the trucks. So, and I should say this too. Later that year in November, Joe Nemechek won the Busch race. I failed to write that down here, but he won that race. Very emotional victory lane, as you can imagine, where he just won at the track that took his brother's life 8 months prior. So, Rob, anything there before we move into what's in the windshield?
I don't really have anything. I think it's time to move on.
All right. Well, the NTT IndyCar Series is off until August 8th, when the inaugural Big Machine Music City Grand Prix takes place on the streets of Nashville. Formula One has a little bit of a shorter break. They're back on July 18th with the British Grand Prix at the historic Silverstone circuit. But this weekend, Formula E is back in Brooklyn They'll take place in Red Hook, right next to the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. That they will have races on Saturday, July 10th and Sunday, July 11th. Supercars returns after nearly a month off with the Townsville 500. Race 15 will take place Saturday morning at 1:45 a.m., Rob. Wow. Race 16 will take place at 12:45 a.m. Sunday morning. Those times are Eastern. Rob, are you going to get up and watch those races?
Of course.
I
always stay up to watch Supercars. Ever since, I did that when I was like in high school and when I was young, I would stay up because actually they had SuperView in like 2013. There was a period of time where SuperView was free for all international viewers. And I would stay up to watch all of it. And that's really how I got hooked on. And I think it was like 2012, 2013 when they had that SuperView was free for everybody. And now it's $5 on YouTube. And I literally am still hooked on it. Supercars is always so much fun to watch every week.
I would expect nothing less. I can't wait to hear about it because I don't know. I don't know if I'll stay up and watch it or not. Actually, I can't watch it. But anyways, we'll hear about it from Rob. Let's at least put it that way. Camping World Superstar Racing Experience. Its turn in the state of Wisconsin this Saturday. Slinger Speedway, the world's fastest quarter mile, will host the 5th of 6 races this season. Included in the field will be the winner of the Slinger Nationals race on Tuesday, July 6th. So after, by the time this podcast comes out available to you, there will already be a 2021 Slinger Nationals champion. We just don't know who it's going to be. NASCAR splits its time between Atlanta Motor Speedway, Knoxville Raceway, and Elko Speedway. The ARCA Menards Series goes racing on Saturday, July 10th at Elko. The Camping World Truck Series will run its inaugural race at Knoxville on Friday, July 9th. I cannot wait for that one myself.
It's impossible I'm still excited for it. I am literally I am so excited for this race.
It's going to be a good one. I got a good feeling about this one. The NASCAR Xfinity Series will make history of its own as for the first time in series history. The field will travel to Atlanta for a second time in a single season, and that race is on Saturday, July 10th, and then on Sunday, the Cup Series races at Atlanta for the second time in a single season for the first time since 2010. We're all rejoicing that one, folks. Atlanta, such a great track, such a great market, right in the heart of the NASCAR basket. So that's that 2 hours and 11 minutes. Let's see if I can get this conclusion done pretty quick. So thanks for listening. If you're new, hope you enjoyed. Hope you come back for more. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. Hope you're continuing to enjoy this one as well. Let us know how we're doing, what you think. Play along with the featured paint scheme. Can't wait to see what you say about the Chip Ganassi paint scheme. We know there's a lot of great ones out there that we didn't choose. We mentioned a few. Let us know yours. And then also the upshift, downshift as well. Play along with those. Socials, Rob, Twitter is at RPEETERS33. I'm at roller_01, ROLLER_01. And the show is at Robin Roller on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and search Racing with Robin Roller on YouTube. And you can find us that way too if you're a YouTube podcast listener. All right, so for Rob Peeters, I'm Josh Roller, and this was the Racing with Robin Roller podcast. Have a great week of races, everybody.